Hashira calls for the harvest while Carmilla zooms away to grab a basket with pure joy. Lydia beams at him, confessing that their perfect life is only possible because of his godlike strength. He gives a gentle smile, insisting that their happiness comes from everyone working together as one. He gazes at their beautiful home and hints that there's actually one more secret to their success. With a massive grin, he shouts that it's all thanks to the divine blessing of the plant god. Lydia sinks into the vibrant garden, soaking in this moment of absolute peace right by his side. Suddenly, the world shatters like glass, leaving a suit-clad Hashira reeling as he remembers the truth. He's actually dead. He's trapped in an endless, blinding white void, his mind spinning as he tries to figure out where on earth he is. Out of nowhere, a stunning goddess descends, introducing herself as the legendary plant god. Stunned and confused, Hashira stammers out his name, his brain failing to process this insane reality. Alfaris flashes a gentle smile, knowing full well that his head is spinning with questions. With a graceful wave of her hand, she tells him to take a breath and step closer. The two of them stand alone in the endless, shimmering void of the divine realm. Hashira's jaw drops as vibrant green grass suddenly explodes from the barren floor. Massive, gnarled roots tear through the empty space, twisting and turning with incredible speed. A table and chairs materialize in a flash, leaving him screaming in wonder as she offers him a seat. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing voice cuts through the air, barking out Elf's name. The intimidating horned god Hours suddenly appears, demanding she stop warping a mortal's domain. Elfira just brushes him off with a laugh, offering a seat to both the grumpy god and the terrified human. Ours lets out a massive, frustrated sigh, muttering that this whole thing is a total drag. Elfira introduces the towering figure as the literal god of the earth. She reveals they're standing in the divine realm, the legendary home of the gods. Confused, Hashira demands to know why he was summoned here on her personal orders. Alpha's bright smile instantly vanishes, and she looks down in a heavy, painful silence. Then she drops the soul-crushing truth. He's only here because he's actually dead. Bashir's eyes bulge in pure terror as he stammers out the word died in disbelief. A shattered memory flashes back to a deserted pedestrian bridge in the dead of night. A lone shoe sits abandoned on the cold concrete, marking the spot of his final agonizing moments. He remembers his body giving out on the walk home, collapsing helplessly onto the pavement. Back in the heavens, Elfora watches him process the tragedy with a look of deep, crushing sorrow. Hashira grips his head, screaming in agony as the horrific memories of his final moments flood back. The Gadar stares him down with a cold, stone-faced gaze that seals his grim destiny. Hashira looks up, his face turning ghostly pale as the weight of his own death crushes his spirit. Ours breaks down how souls usually pass on, revealing that Elfra begged him to step in and save him. When he asks if she did it all for him, Elfra beams with joy and admits she's totally head over heels. Hashira stands there frozen, his jaw hitting the floor after that bombshell confession. Elford triggers a memory, asking if he remembers repairing a tiny, shattered shrine when he was just a kid. It clicks. He remembers his grandma saying a powerful harvest god lived within those ruins. That shrine was right by his grandparents' house, and Elfra confirms that was her sacred home. He finally realizes that his small act of mercy was what saved her and restored her lost faith. Elfira beams with a radiant smile, telling him he's the sole reason she's alive again. She confesses that his incredible kindness forced her to watch over him from the shadows ever since. A faint smile touches Hashira's face as the true depth of their bond finally clicks. But his joy vanishes instantly as a soul-crushing memory takes hold. He's pulled back to the grim, heart-wrenching sight of his parents' funeral. He remembers the agony of trying to comfort his two little sisters while his own world was ending. He stares at the ground in total sorrow, wondering why his life had to be such a tragedy. He grits his teeth hard, feeling the suffocating weight of his past crushing his spirit. Drowning in regret, Elfira desperately apologizes for being powerless to help him back then. Bashira absorbs her apology, his expression turning calm and deeply thoughtful. A calm, knowing smile spreads across his face as he looks up. He reassures her that everything is fine, completely washing away her guilt. He realizes it's totally selfish to only beg the gods for help when things get desperate. Elfira is moved to tears by his wisdom, but Ours just scoffs in total disbelief. Ours points a finger and shouts that Japanese people are famous for their convenient faith. He calls it pure selfishness, leaving Hashira to offer nothing but a weak, sheepish apology. Suddenly, Alfred has a genius plan. He can be reborn into a brand new world. Ours explains this new world is a wild place filled with bizarre cultures and non-human races. He makes it clear this is a total transfer, But if he refuses, there's only one other choice. The alternative is terrifying. Hashira's soul will be wiped out of existence forever. Elfar drops a bombshell warning. This transfer is absolutely no guarantee of a happy life. If he'd rather just rest in eternal peace, she promises not to force him into this. She gazes at him with a heavy, serious look and asks what he truly wants to do. Hashira freezes, his eyes glued to the floor as he grapples with this monumental decision. Elphora waits in total silence, her hands clasped tight as she hangs on his every word. She stands up from her seat and silently closes the distance between them. She towers over the seated Hashira, her long hair cascading behind her like a silken cape. She confesses that what she's about to ask is nothing more than her own selfish desire. Her expression turns tender, radiating a deep and desperate personal hope. She explains that since his life was so brutal, she's determined to help him find peace now. She grabs his hands and tells him that in his next life, he needs to live completely free. To his absolute shock, hot tears begin to flood his eyes. He touches his cheek in total confusion, wondering why he's suddenly breaking down. Elphira opens her arms wide, offering him a warm, comforting embrace. She pulls him close and whispers that he's endured far too much suffering. As she gently strokes his hair, his stoic mask finally shatters. A beautiful memory of his mother and sister suddenly flashes through his mind. He collapses against her, sobbing uncontrollably as a lifetime of grief pours out. The world goes silent for a moment, letting his raw emotions finally settle. Now, feeling totally embarrassed, Hashira stammers an apology for his massive outburst. Alfara gives him a warm smile, telling him everything is going to be just fine. Suddenly, Hours interrupts with a stone-cold face, demanding to know his ultimate choice. Determination burns in Hashira's eyes as he screams his answer. Send me over! Ours gives a sharp nod of approval while Elphora practically glows with pure joy. Elphra leans in, offering their godlike power to make any dream of his a reality. Hashira pauses, searching his soul for the one life he's always craved. Suddenly, his eyes snap wide as a perfect vision flashes before him. He sees a breathtaking countryside, a peaceful paradise waiting just for him. He wants a quiet life in the wild, just like the home he left behind. Ars points out this is Elphira's domain, and as the goddess of artists, she's ready to create it. Two literal gods tower over him, poised to make his wildest dreams a reality. Elphira steps forward, vowing to shield him with her own holy protection. Blinding light erupts from her palms as she channels her celestial energy. A pulsating sphere of raw power drifts from her fingertips and sinks deep into Hashira's chest. Ars notes that with this divine grace, he'll never have to worry about starving again. Hashira stares at his palms, confused because he doesn't feel any different just yet. Alfara promises that the surge of power will hit him the moment his new body takes shape. She reveals there's one more surprise, summoning a final blinding gift of light. She presents him with a magnificent ancient staff that radiates pure, overwhelming strength. Hashira grips the legendary tool, desperate to know what kind of power he's holding. Elphira reveals that this divine artifact is the key to mastering her overwhelming power. She grins, explaining that the tool shifts its size so it'll never weigh him down. Hashira grips the modest staff, blown away by just how useful this thing really is. The god Hours snatches the staff and marvels at the raw divine energy surging inside. He points a finger at Hashira and declares that the reincarnation process starts right now. A blinding magic circle explodes beneath Hashira's feet as he readies himself for the unknown. Hours promises he's heading to a lush green paradise, and Hashira couldn't be happier. With a genuine smile, Hashira admits he's always hated the suffocating city crowds anyway. Elphira calls out his name one last time as he's pulled up into a massive pillar of light. Both gods wave goodbye, praying that his new life is filled with nothing but happiness and triumph. Hashira beams with a warm smile, offering his deepest thanks to Elphra and the gods. He looks down as he floats into the light, watching the two deities shrink into the distance. He wakes up with a soft groan, his eyes fluttering open as he tries to figure out where he is. He sits up and realizes he's been dropped right into the middle of a thick, mysterious forest. He springs to his feet in total shock, shouting because his clothes have completely changed. He checks out his new gear, realizing he's now dressed in practical clothes perfect for a farmer. Standing on a massive root, he's absolutely blown away by the sheer scale of the giant trees. He treks past strange, glowing crystals, taking in the alien beauty of this new world. The massive canopy towers over him, signaling the start of a wild and dangerous journey. From a high vantage point, he realizes this isn't just any woods. It's a legendary, massive forest. He tears through the dense foliage, realizing this wilderness is way more savage than he ever bargained for. He knows right then and there, surviving in this hellscape is going to be a brutal uphill battle. He freezes, staring down at his palm as a wild realization hits him like a lightning bolt. A plan takes shape. He needs to carve a home out of this untamed land right now. He hoists his divine tool, feeling an ancient primal instinct surge through his veins. Boom! An invisible shockwave slams into a massive tree, bringing it crashing down with a deafening roar. Massive, enchanted vines burst from the soil, whipping around to clear the area with pure magic. He stares at the wreckage, realizing he's wielding the raw, unstoppable blessing of the plant god. A genius idea strikes. He can channel this overwhelming power exactly like Alfred did. He shuts his eyes tight, pouring his entire soul into a single warm memory to ignite his magic. He visualizes every detail of the childhood home where he lived with his grandparents. Heavy wooden beams and planks fly through the air, clattering together as they snap into place. The structure erupts at a blinding speed, manifesting the entire house in the blink of an eye. He stands there in total shock, staring at a massive building that appeared out of thin air. Gripping his staff, he slides open the door and steps across the threshold of his new sanctuary. A massive grin breaks across his face as a wave of pure nostalgia hits him. He scans the hollow wooden rooms, finding them eerily empty but deeply familiar. He quickly realizes his magic didn't come with furniture. The place is totally bare. Reality hits him hard. He's going to need a kitchen and a bath if he wants to survive here. He strokes his chin, knowing his absolute first priority is finding a steady supply of water. He stares up at the rafters, steeling his resolve for his very first mission in this bizarre world. He steps outside his new home and charges straight into the unknown to start his hunt. The forest is a tangled, suffocating mess that looks nearly impossible to cross. He's completely swallowed up by the massive ancient trees of his new home. He marches forward with total focus while his divine tool begins to glow with a soft, eerie light. Like magic, the tall grass and thick weeds part ways, rolling out the red carpet for him. He looks around in total shock, stunned by the insane power of his divine blessing. He can't help but smirk, realizing the plant god's gift makes navigating this jungle a total piece of cake. He drops to the ground, grateful that he can now identify every single plant he sees. Instantly, he finds two edible snacks: the onion-like Ayanoko and the radish-like Tobihiko. He grins at his massive haul, thrilled to find rare wild greens he'd never see back in his hometown. Suddenly, his eyes lock onto a tree dripping with familiar fruit. The legendary Gravelingo. He sinks his teeth into the fruit, and a wave of sweet juice explodes across his tongue with a crisp crunch. These local treats are famous for that perfect, mouth-watering balance of tartness and sugar. His face beams with pure ecstasy as he shouts that this is the best thing he's ever tasted. He starts grabbing as many as he can, knowing these juicy gems are the ultimate way to stay hydrated. He stuffs his woven back basket to the brim with a massive stash of Gravelingos. But he freezes mid-pick when the unmistakable sound of rushing water echoes through the trees. He chases the sound until he bursts out onto a hidden, sun-drenched path deep in the forest. He peeks through the thick brush, and his jaw drops at the unbelievable sight before him. He's greeted by a breathtaking coastline stretching as far as the eye can see under a massive sunlit sky. Pure joy surges through him as he scrambles down the jagged rocks toward the water he's been dying to find. He wades into the shallows, completely stunned by the schools of fish darting through the crystal-clear waves. He drops his bucket in awe, mesmerized by the sheer purity of the water and the vibrant life teeming within it. He realizes he could easily catch a feast right here if he only had a hook and some line. Suddenly, the faint thud of hooves against the grass catches him completely off guard. He instantly drops into a crouch behind a bush, his curiosity piqued by the mysterious rustling nearby. He holds his breath and slowly parts the leaves, desperate to get a glimpse of what's lurking there. His eyes widen in total shock as he spots a massive, bizarre creature he's never seen before. It's a magnificent emerald green deer with a single majestic horn, peacefully drinking from the shore. Water glistens on the beast's snout as it peacefully laps from the water's edge. He studies the creature's every move, realizing it's nothing more than a harmless plant eater. Suddenly, a primal hunger takes over. Veggies are fine, but his soul is screaming for meat. Flashbacks of an old neighborhood hunter flood his mind, reminding him exactly how to carve up a kill. He drops into a low crouch, his face hardening with pure, cold focus as he plans his strike. His eyes narrow with lethal intent as he finally decides to make this creature his prey. The deer's ear snaps toward him, sensing danger a split second before it explodes into a sprint. He lunges after the fleeing beast, stunned by its lightning-fast survival instincts. He jams his staff forward, refusing to let his massive protein dinner slip through his fingers. A massive web of crushing vines erupts from the tip of his legendary weapon. Those vines strike with lethal precision, snatching the deer right out of the air. The beast thrashes wildly, but it's no use. It crashes into the grass, totally paralyzed. As the dust settles, he walks toward his prize with cold, calm focus. His divine tool shifts and glows, morphing into a razor-sharp, lethal blade. Looking down with a heavy heart, he whispers a final apology to the fallen creature. High above, birds soar through the clouds, oblivious to the hunt below. He drops to his knees by the water's edge, ready to prepare his hard-earned meal. kill. The weapon transforms once more as he reminds himself, no eating this stuff raw. He dives into the grim work of butchering, letting the cool water wash the blood away. He wipes the sweat from his brow and exhales. The first stage of the hunt is finally over. A complex diagram reveals the ancient butchering techniques he's executing with surgical precision. He's incredibly thankful for the hardcore survival lessons he inherited from the old hunter back home. He lifts his hand-woven net, praising his past self for actually paying attention to those legendary hunting stories. Looking over his massive catch, he realizes his new life is less about farming and all about brutal survival. The secured carcass rests on the sun-drenched shore, ready to be hauled back to his base. He kicks back on the jagged rocks, enjoying a hard-earned break while devouring a sweet grave lingo. He revels in his absolute freedom, finally rid of the suffocating pressure and deadlines of his old world. He stares into the glowing sunset over the waves, feeling a deep, powerful sense of peace wash over him. As the shadows stretch long, he decides it's finally time to make the trek back to his house. A look of pure determination hardens his face. He's ready for anything this mysterious world has in store. Sunlight dances across the endless, shimmering ocean while a lone bird cruises through the clouds. He lets out a deep stretch, dreaming of the day he finally carves out a perfect life in this paradise. Grinning from ear to ear, he decides it's finally time to pack it up and head back. As he treks toward his cabin, he can't help but tally up the massive haul he scored today. His mind races through the legendary loot: Tobihiko, Ayanoko, Gravelingo, and even a green deer. Night begins to swallow the sky, casting deep shadows over the roof of his brand new home. Once inside, he pours every ounce of his strength into a desperate struggle to spark a fire by hand. With a guttural roar of pure desperation, he pushes his body past its absolute breaking point. He collapses in total defeat, staring at his shattered fire starter lying uselessly in the dust. He curses his own clumsy hands, wondering how his grandpa ever made this look so effortless. He peers out the door, his heart sinking as he realizes the sun is vanishing and total darkness is closing in. He desperately tries to remember his training, but a bizarre, intrusive thought echoes in his mind. Add more hands! This insane instinct hits him like a truck, leaving him frozen and completely baffled. He stares at the wood, questioning his own sanity. How on earth is he supposed to sprout limbs from timber? Taking a leap of faith, he sits down and pours his power into the floor, praying this actually works. Suddenly, a massive vine erupts from the floorboards, twisting and surging upward with terrifying speed. He watches, paralyzed with awe, as the living wood begins to fuse and take shape right before his eyes. His jaw drops as the wooden monstrosity swells, growing bigger and more imposing by the second. A colossal wooden golem now looms over him, and he can't help but scream at its sheer, massive scale. He drops to his knees before the Titan, begging the giant to hold the foundation steady. The silent golem stares down at the request before giving a slow, heavy nod of approval. With the golem's massive strength, thick plumes of smoke start swirling from the grinding wood. He leans in close, desperately blowing on the tiny ember to coax it into a blaze. Suddenly, a bright flame bursts to life with a satisfying pop. A massive grin spreads across his face as he screams that he's finally conquered fire. He lets out a huge sigh of relief, knowing he's finally safe from the creeping shadows of the night. But when he spins around to thank his partner, the golem has completely vanished into thin air. He spots the giant slumped over on the porch, leaving him baffled as to why it retreated so far. A sudden realization hits him, and he asks the creature if it's actually terrified of the flames. He offers his sincere thanks and promises the creature that it has absolutely nothing to fear. Smoke curls into the midnight sky as the crescent moon watches over the silent cabin. A cozy fire roars inside, cutting through the shadows like a golden shield. With the shelter finally warm and bright, it's time to whip up a feast. He sorts through his haul, eyeing a bunch of strange but tasty-looking wild plants. He's managed to scavenge Mazoru ferns, vibrant pink cherries, and a weird fruit called amiguki. The amiguki looks just like sugarcane, but he realizes he'll have to peel it first. Those pink cherries look exactly like the ones from back home. He's dying to boil the veggies to stay safe, but he hits a massive roadblock. He doesn't have a pot, so he's forced to settle for a fruit-only dinner tonight. He sinks his teeth into a cherry and his eyes widen. It's an absolute flavor explosion. Mid-bite, a stroke of pure genius hits him like a lightning bolt. He could carve a pot out of solid rock to finally put his divine tool to the test. But suddenly, a massive wave of exhaustion hits, and he can't stop a heavy yawn from escaping. He's completely wiped out, so the stone carving will just have to wait until morning. Now he's got a new mission: finding a place to crash that won't break his back. With a flash of magic, a mountain of soft, fresh leaves bursts into existence. He figures this giant pile of foliage is the perfect DIY mattress for the night. He dives headfirst into the pile, shocked by how incredibly soft and fluffy it feels. He gives himself a mental high five for coming up with such a cozy solution. Just before drifting off, he waves a quick goodnight to his silent protector standing guard outside. Morning breaks with a jaw-dropping view of mountains swallowed by thick, mysterious mist. He slides the door open and steps onto the porch, reaching for the sky with a massive stretch. A satisfied groan escapes his lips as the biting morning air wakes up his aching muscles. Turns out that leaf bed was surprisingly cozy, even if he does smell like a fresh-cut lawn. There's work to be done, and his loyal golem is already hard at work sweeping the porch. His to-do list is packed. Hunt for food, butcher that deer, and finally craft a clay pot. But wait. There's one crucial mission he needs to tackle before anything else. With a grin, he shouts his master plan. It's time to plant seeds and build his very own farm. Goals locked in, he marches straight toward the clearing he spent all that time prepping. He summons his divine tool, and in a flash it transforms into a heavy-duty shovel. He locks his eyes on the small plot of land he's marked for his first big test. With the sun at his back, he hoists the shovel high into the air, ready to strike. That magical shovel cuts through the rock-hard ground like a hot knife through butter. He's absolutely stunned that a basic-looking wooden tool can tear through the earth this easily. He dives back into the grueling labor, prepping every inch of soil for his future harvest. Right in the middle of his hard work, his silent golem buddy emerges from the shadows of the forest. Shocked, he asks if the golem is actually there to help, and the giant gives a firm nod. Grinning, he taps into his power and crafts a wooden hoe out of a stray branch in seconds. He hands the fresh tool to the golem and tells his new partner to get to work. He catches his breath, staring in awe at the massive field they've managed to plow together. Standing by his massive golem, he's shocked they've crushed the work before the sun is even high. He laughs at the golem's bottomless energy and jokingly declares it the champion of the day. The field is primed and ready. Now it's finally time to get those seeds in the ground. The giant golem uses its massive finger to delicately press a single seed into the dirt. Hashira takes a moment to show his titan-sized friend exactly how to plant with precision. He meticulously tucks every tiny seed into the nutrient-rich soil he's worked so hard on. But they can't grow without water, so the duo marches down to the shimmering crystal-clear shore. While Hashira catches his breath, the golem stomps into the shallows to haul up massive buckets of water. The golem makes light work of the heavy load, lugging the water back to the field with ease. Those wooden buckets are overflowing with the fresh, life-giving water their crops desperately need. His legendary divine tool shifts forms, spraying a refreshing mist over the freshly planted seeds. Now that everything's set, it's time to unleash the true potential of his god-tier blessing. He remembers that back on Earth, farming perfect apples takes years of expert mastery. He can't help but wonder, what kind of monster crop will grow if he fuses that human wisdom with divine magic? Suddenly, the ground violently shakes as raw magic surges deep into the dirt. A tiny sprout bursts through the surface, growing at a speed that defies all logic. Right before his eyes, that little sprout explodes into a massive, thriving tree in seconds. He's absolutely floored by this insane, godlike growth rate. But wait. The soil is turning brittle and dead because the power is just too overwhelming. Realizing this magic drains the very life from the land, he knows he has to use it with extreme caution. With the job finally finished, he collapses onto a nearby rock to catch his breath. He stares up at the sunlight filtering through the trees, finally soaking in a moment of pure silence. Just a few feet away, the massive golem carefully nurtures a tiny, fragile sapling. A wave of serenity washes over him as he watches his own creation hard at work. He observes his mute partner, feeling a deep, unspoken bond growing between them. Suddenly, his mind drifts back home, aching with worry for the family he left behind. Guilt stabs at his heart, making him feel like a coward who abandoned his duties. Right as the gloom starts to take over, his stomach erupts with a thunderous, demanding roar. He gives a wry smirk, realizing that no matter how much he worries, his hunger won't wait. He smacks his own cheeks to snap out of it, forcing himself to focus on the here and now. Hashira wakes up with a fire in his soul and commands his golem to follow. They're on a hunt for fresh crops and the massive deer they bagged earlier. But Hashira realizes that just calling him golem is way too cold for a partner. He jokingly suggests the name Kataro, only to get a painful smack right on the head, rubbing his aching skull. He wonders why that name made his friend so mad. He stops for a moment, desperately trying to think of something better. His face beams with excitement as he suggests the name Lent. He looks at his companion, praying this name is the one they've been waiting for. Link gives a slow, deliberate nod, and Hashira makes it official. He gives Lent a proper greeting as they charge deeper into the wild forest. The day's winds are locked in. He's mastered the fields and finally found a family to call his own. They reach a massive rock wall, and he tasks Lent with hauling the heavy stone. In a heartbeat, his divine tool shifts into a lethal, razor-sharp blade. He presses the edge against the jagged rock to see exactly what this weapon can do. His jaw hits the floor as the knife glides through solid stone like it's warm butter. This tool is absolutely lethal, and he realizes he has to handle this insane power with extreme caution. He knows he needs to train hard to truly master the limits of his godlike abilities. Limp gets to work, stacking those massive, perfectly sliced blocks of stone. Hashira is filled with gratitude, staring in awe at Lent's terrifying, monstrous strength. Right in the middle of the job, he drops to his knees to inspect a mysterious little plant. His head snaps up as something strange catches his eye. He asks Lent what's going on after seeing his companion freeze in his tracks. Lent points a wooden finger toward a tree dripping with mysterious fruit. Hashira rushes over, desperate to see if they've stumbled upon a brand new crop. It turns out these origo fruits are absolutely bursting with natural oil. A wave of pure joy hits him as he realizes he's found this world's version of an olive. His mind instantly floods with 1,000 delicious new ways to cook. Right then, he spots a treasure trove of wild vegetables growing in the brush. He knows that combining fresh oil and wild greens can only lead to one masterpiece. He shouts with pure excitement, declaring that it's finally time for tempura. He knows it's unseasoned, but that raw, natural bitterness is going to taste incredible. He harvests a massive haul to feast on and grabs fresh seedlings to expand his garden. He's hyped to start a brand new field for the orgo and herbs, and with their baskets overflowing, he signals Lin that it's time to move out. They make it back to the base just as the clouds begin to drift across the horizon. Once they're home, Hashira gears up, ready to tackle his next massive construction project. He unleashes his divine energy, forcing massive wooden planks to erupt straight out of the ground. The wood snaps together instantly, forming a rock-solid structure right before his eyes. He checks over every inch, totally satisfied with his brand new custom butchering shed. He calls out to Lent, ordering him to haul the massive deer carcass into the fresh workspace. He commands his powerhouse ally to slam the beast down onto the prep table. Lent grips the massive carcass while Hashira grabs a wooden bucket, ready for the messy work ahead. He dives right into the grueling, bloody task of skinning the beast. Lent keeps the deer perfectly still as Hashira carves with surgical precision. Sweat pours down his face as he locks in, focusing every ounce of energy on the exhausting labor. He lets out a heavy sigh, realizing this would be impossible without Lent's monstrous strength. He looks at Lent and makes him promise to be there for every future hunt. With the butchering finished, he's faced with a new challenge: keeping all this meat fresh. He realizes an underground cellar is the perfect solution to save their haul. He turns to his loyal partner and calls out that brand new name with pride. He tasks Lent with digging out a massive cellar to store their mountain of meat. While that's running, he gets straight to work planting those fresh seedlings he just gathered. An adorable chibi version of him pops up to explain step 1, digging the perfect hole. Next, he instructs us to flood the hole with water and let the earth drink it all in. Then he carefully tucks the seedling in, making sure those fragile roots aren't damaged. He firmly packs the soil around the base to lock the little plant into its new home. He finishes the masterclass by giving the sprout one final refreshing soak. To give these plants the ultimate head start, he prepares to unleash his true power. He channels his inner energy, activating his legendary growth promotion ability. The plants react instantly, erupting in a soft, shimmering aura of pure magic. With a massive smile, he cheers on his new plants to grow big, strong, and healthy. His farm is absolutely thriving with 8 different types of crops now. But he's not stopping there. He's determined to expand his fields even further. Time skips forward as his hard work begins to pay off. Peaceful clouds drift slowly over the roof of his quiet home. He tracks down Lent, dying to know if the underground cellar is finally finished. Lent stands tall, bursting with pride over the masterpiece he just completed. Hashira charges forward, desperate to see the results with his own eyes. He's completely blown away by how massive and well-built the new cellar actually is. He heaps praise on Lent for crafting such a legendary and sturdy storeroom. Now he orders Lent to set up the shelves and get all that meat into storage immediately. A shiver shoots through him as he feels the perfect icy chill of the underground air. He tears through the rest of his work, desperate to start cooking a massive feast. The cellar door slams shut with a heavy, satisfying thud that echoes through the room. A blank panel flashes before him, signaling the end of his grueling daily grind. He rubs his exhausted eyes, his mind already racing with ideas for a legendary dinner. With a shout of pure joy, he reveals a massive, mouth-watering slab of venison. He's absolutely hyped to finally feast on meat, especially a prime shoulder roast like this. Lent sighs to himself, realizing it's a total tragedy they don't have any salt or pepper. Ashira fires up a stone slab, ready to sear that meat to perfection using orgo oil. He remembers the slow water cooking method, but he's way too hungry to wait around. He quickly realizes that smashing through the orgo fruit's rock-hard shell is going to be a total nightmare. He thinks about using a heavy stone to bash it open, but he's terrified of making a sticky, disgusting mess. But just then, a stroke of pure genius flashes through his mind. He turns to Lent, hyping up his loyal companion to use his raw strength to pulverize the fruit. He thrusts a wooden bowl forward, ready to catch every single drop of that precious extracted oil. While Lent handles the heavy lifting, he gets to work prepping a delicious feast of wild greens. He glances at the stone pot and grins as the water reaches a violent rolling boil. He's relieved he can finally blanch these veggies to kill off any nasty bacteria and keep things clean. He carefully plots out the perfect way to cook up this massive haul of forest greens. It's time to serve up the fresh A&O company and Tobihiko he scavenged earlier that day. Lent pulverizes a cluster of herbs with a single bone-crushing squeeze. Hashira gives a nod of thanks, totally blown away by his partner's raw power. He takes the bowl of oil, and even though it's a little rough, it'll get the job done. He flash boils the greens before plunging them into ice-cold water for that perfect crunch. Now it's time for the main event, searing that massive slab of venison. He drops the thick steak onto the scorching, oil-slicked stone. That glorious sizzle is pure music to his ears. A total victory. But man, wrestling with the wild heat of the open flame is no easy task. Time skips forward as the cooking enters its final, mouth-watering stage. Beaming with pure pride, Hashira shouts to the world that his masterpiece is finally finished. A masterpiece hits the table, venison grilled in rich origo oil that looks absolutely divine. Before taking a single bite, he clasps his hands in a heartfelt prayer of thanks. He turns to Lent, wondering if this massive golem needs a real meal or just a drink of water. With a soft splash, Lent dips its massive root-like feet straight into a bucket of water. Hashira realizes that as a plant creature, Lent lives off nothing but pure water and sunlight. He beams at his plate, thrilled that they can finally share a meal together like real companions. He gives his hands one final clap and declares it's officially time to feast. He dives in, starting with the fresh wild vegetables he foraged earlier that day. He grips his chopsticks and lifts a piece of the onion-like anoko, ready for the first taste. He takes a massive bite of the steaming vegetable, letting the incredible new flavors explode on his tongue. He's blown away by that satisfying crunch and refined sweetness, loving every single bite. Then he samples the Tobihiko, realizing its sharp, bitter kick is the ultimate partner for a cup of sake. At last, he declares it's time for the showstopper, that flawlessly grilled venison. But he winces, offering a quick apology to the goddess Elphora for using her sacred gift as a mere fork. He hoists a juicy slice of meat, his heart racing to see if it's cooked to absolute perfection. With a glorious crunch, he sinks his teeth into the very beast he tracked and took down himself. His eyes snap wide in total shock as he shouts about how impossibly tender the meat is. The taste is pure and light without a hint of gaminess, letting the meat's natural flavor explode on his tongue. He catches a trace of grassy bitterness in the oil and vows to find a way to extract it even better next time. A look of pure bliss washes over him as he savors every bit of this hard-won feast. Resting by the flickering flames, he realizes this isn't just farming. It's a brutal fight for survival. He can't help but wonder if he'll ever miss the intense, raw taste of the wild. Under the glowing moon, a list of his hard-earned victories flashes across the night sky. Dawn breaks, and Hashira is already in the woods, pouring every ounce of his focus into his hidden power. With a fierce roar, he thrusts his divine tool forward, ready to unleash its true potential. He hitches a ride on a giant log as it rockets forward with a massive burst of speed. His plan was simple: transform the log into a high-speed transport to traverse the land. But the sheer G-force catches him off guard, sending him wobbling and flailing like a madman. He screams in shock as he's launched right off his runaway wooden rocket. He faceplants into the dirt in a pathetic heap, cursing his own clumsy feet for failing him. He realizes that if he can just master this technique, traveling across the world will be a total breeze. He figures that using lint to stabilize the back might actually make this wild idea a reality. Brushing the dirt off his clothes, he confidently decides to save this experiment for another day. He shifts his focus back to the grind, tending to the daily chores of his massive farm. Suddenly, a lone weed starts to tremble and shake deep within the dirt. With a loud pop, the weed rips its own roots out of the ground at his command. Every weed in the field just collapses, clearing the entire plot with magical precision. He kneels down, realizing how effortless weeding becomes when you have absolute power over nature. He grins while checking his crops, seeing just how massive and healthy they've become. Because of his divine blessing, these plants will be ready for harvest in just a matter of days. These trees should take years to mature, but they're sprouting up right before his eyes. He boils up his first harvest and takes a bite, only to be hit by an absolute explosion of flavor. He's stunned. These crops taste 1,000,000 times better than anything he's ever found in the wild. This god-tier taste has to be a hidden perk of his insane divine blessing. He stares at his orchard and decides that as long as they're delicious, nothing else matters. Pure hype surges through him as he swears to double the size of his farm before the sun hits its peak. He throws his arms back and prepares to pour every ounce of his soul into this labor. Suddenly, reality hits him like a truck as he stares down the massive job ahead. His face twists in pain, realizing that tilling this entire field alone is going to be absolute torture. Surveying the dirt, he finally admits it. The life of a farmer is freaking brutal. He pulls himself together, realizing his blessing means he doesn't have to work himself to death. Suddenly, a trail of delicious, fragrant smoke catches his eye and dances past his nose. He takes a deep breath, instantly recognizing that mouth-watering scent from his latest project. It's time for a break, so he follows the trail to see how his smokehouse is holding up. He reaches the wooden shed where Lin has been standing guard like a total pro. He gives a quick wave, thanking his silent partner for keeping a watchful eye on the fire. His heart races as he pulls open the door, praying his very first attempt wasn't a total disaster. But inside, the meat looks absolutely perfect, and he can't help but shout for joy at the sight. He calls over Lent to help him haul the feast to a breezy spot so it can air out properly. Standing on the porch, he realizes there's no way he can finish this massive mountain of meat alone. Smoking the meat is a great start, but he has no clue how long this stash will actually stay fresh. Then, a truly terrifying thought hits him. Without any seasoning, this feast is going to be completely tasteless. He breaks down in hilarious agony, screaming that he's never craved the salty ocean air more in his entire life. Desperate for flavor, he prays he can stumble upon some rock salt or even just a few wild herbs. He wastes no time and decides to scout the far side of the property for any hidden supplies. He calls out to Lint to grab a basket, and the loyal golem gives a silent, stoic nod of approval. He warns Lint they need to move fast, since the sun is already dipping below the horizon. The duo plunges into the thick woods, determined to find anything that can save their dinner from being a disaster. As they trek through the brush, he notices that this specific spot is absolutely crawling with overgrown weeds. Suddenly, he freezes in his tracks, his eyes widening as he spots something strange hidden in the dirt. Suddenly, his blessing flares to life, pinpointing 3 rare medicinal herbs hidden right beneath his feet. He's absolutely floored. These priceless plants were hiding in plain sight among the common weeds the whole time. He drops to his knees, grinning as his power floods his mind with the perfect way to harvest them. He knows he needs to build a proper herb garden right now, before an emergency strikes and it's too late. With steady hands, he carefully digs into the earth to relocate the precious plant. But as he works, a mysterious and hauntingly familiar scent catches on the breeze. He freezes in total shock, his heart racing as he recognizes that unforgettable smell. Pure joy washes over him as he spots a patch of dakotami, a plant straight from his original world. Tears well up in his eyes. He never dreamed he'd ever smell this piece of home again. A flood of memories hits him, taking him back to his childhood and the warm tea his grandmother used to brew. He drops to his knees before the flowers, his heart swelling with nostalgia for the world he left behind. He carefully harvests a bundle, determined to give these precious plants a new home in his own garden. A massive grin spreads across his face because even without spices, this find is an absolute jackpot. He grabs just enough for now, planning to return for the rest of this treasure later. But the hunt isn't over because suddenly a bizarre bud-shaped fruit catches his eye. He inspects the massive fruit, questioning if the inside is stuffed with something fluffy like cotton. His blessing kicks in, identifying it as chewy fruit, the ultimate bread substitute in this world. He's absolutely ecstatic since he thought he'd have to survive without rice or wheat forever. He slowly peels back the thick outer leaves, finally uncovering the prize hidden inside. He pulls out the soft, doughy center, and it feels exactly like fresh, squishy mochi. It looks just like mochi, but the texture feels more like soft, fluffy bread. With a massive grin, he decides it's finally time for the ultimate taste test. He sinks his teeth in and is instantly hit by a wave of gentle, natural sweetness. He realizes the texture is a dead ringer for raw dough made from rice flour. His mind races with delicious ideas, from char grilling it to dropping it into a savory soup. He starts hoarding a massive stash to plant in a brand new field of his own. A genius idea hits him. He's going to serve this mochi fruit alongside his smoked meat. He's absolutely buzzing with excitement for tomorrow's feast as he gathers even more. Just as he tosses another fruit into the basket, he freezes. A foul, disgusting scent hits his nose. A wave of pure dread washes over Hashira as he grips his collar, realizing something is terribly wrong. After all that brutal training, a simple splash of water just wasn't enough to get him clean. Driven by a sudden desperate urge, he screamed that he needed a real bath immediately. He looked at his silent partner and declared, "Lent, we're heading out for a soak!" With a determined grin lighting up his face, he decided the lake was their next destination. Lent, the wooden golem, just tilted its head in total silent confusion. They finally reached the shores of a massive, shimmering lake, the perfect place for some peace and quiet. Hashira grabbed his divine tool and immediately started crafting a custom bathtub. He built it massive and wide, dreaming of the moment he could finally stretch out and relax. He paused for a second, eyeing his work and deciding the size was just right. Then he commanded the ever-faithful Lent to start filling the tub with fresh water. In the meantime, he pushes his limits by trying to spark a flame all by himself. He's dead set on mastering survival in this brutal new reality. Gritting his teeth, he pours every ounce of focus into the friction. He slams his entire weight onto the fire drill, desperate for a spark. The second he sees smoke, he cranks up the speed to a frantic blur. Time stands still as he battles the elements under the vast open sky. With one last surge of power, the kindling erupts into a beautiful, crackling flame. "I actually did it!" he roars, his heart swelling with pure triumph. He turns to Lent with a smug grin, demanding to know if his partner is finally impressed. Without wasting a second, he shoves massive stones into the heart of the blaze to get them red hot. The stones glowed with a fierce cherry-red heat, signaling they were finally ready. He gripped the first sizzling rock and plunged it straight into the cool water. He knew he'd have to keep this up, stone by stone, until the water was steaming. After dropping a wooden grate into the tub for comfort, his masterpiece was almost finished. "The bath is finally complete!" he shouted, striking a pose of pure victory. He ripped off his clothes with pure excitement, desperate to dive right in. He dipped a hand in to test the heat, and it was absolutely, gloriously perfect. As he sank into the steaming tub, he let out a massive sigh of pure, unadulterated relief. "Oh man," he whispered, his face melting into a mask of total ecstasy. "This is heaven." He splashed the crystal-clear water over his face, feeling every bit of filth and exhaustion vanish. He realized the old saying was spot on. A good soak really is the laundry of the soul. The two friends relaxed in the water, looking like tiny specks against the massive, breathtaking horizon. With that epic view, this felt less like a riverbank and more like the world's most elite outdoor spa. Right then and there, he swore to make this a daily ritual to scrub away the grime and exhaustion of his journey. Suddenly, he caught his silent partner Lent, watching him with an intense, unblinking gaze from the shore. He shouted out, wondering if the big guy actually wanted to hop in and join the fun. He grinned and offered to swap spots, promising to give Lent a thorough scrub down before he took the plunge. He sent a massive spray of water crashing against the golem's powerful wooden frame. He gave a quick lesson in etiquette, insisting that you've got to rinse off the dirt before you dive into the tub. Lent hauled his massive weight into the water, sending a colossal tidal wave crashing over the sides. Water erupted over the edges as the heavy golems finally settled into the tub. "Enjoying your first bath?" Hashira asked, as Link flashed an enthusiastic thumbs up. A warm smile spread across his face, thrilled that his bizarre companion was having the time of his life. While pinning up his laundry, he decided that tomorrow's bath had to be under the waterfall. The soothing rhythm of the waves crashing against the shore echoed through the quiet night. "Yo, Lent!" Ashura shouted. "It's time to pack it up and head back!" But he stood deathly still, his gaze fixed on something mysterious further down the beach. Hashira followed his stare, and his eyes nearly popped out of his head in total shock. A young woman with flowing blonde hair lay motionless and unconscious on the damp sand. He raced toward her, but as he got closer, those long, pointed ears revealed she was actually an elf. Suddenly, he remembers the god's words. This world is home to far more than just humans. He leans in close, his shock instantly morphing into pure dread for her life. That's when he spots it. A horrific, jagged wound gushing blood from her side. Panic surges through him as the grim reality hits. She's been brutally injured. He carefully supports her, but she's completely unresponsive and ice cold to the touch. His basic medicine won't cut it. He needs the high-grade herbs back at his house, and fast. Her breathing is shallow, and her life is slipping away on the freezing wet sand. She winces in agony one last time before her world fades into total darkness. "Lent, pick her up gently," he barks. "She's in critical condition." This is it. The perfect, desperate moment to finally put his experimental transportation magic to the test. "Grab the vines in the back!" he barks at Lent, taking his place at the front. He white-knuckles his divine tool, his entire body trembling with pure determination. This is it! He steals his soul for the suicide mission ahead. "We're flying!" he screams as the log rockets across the land like a bullet. Flashback to the elf sprinting for her life, her lungs burning as she gasps for air. She thinks she's finally lost them, but her body is absolutely mangled. She desperately grips the jagged gash left behind by a massive armored bear. She staggers forward, knowing if she doesn't stop the bleeding now, she's a dead woman. Thick, dark blood spatters against the dirt right at her feet. "I can't go out like this!" she cries internally as her strength completely evaporates. She crashes onto the dirt, her vision spiraling into total darkness. With her final ounce of strength, a single desperate plea echoes in her mind. "Please, someone save me!" Suddenly, she bolts upright, her lungs burning as she gasps for air. Her head spins in a total daze as she tries to piece together what happened. Panic strikes when she realizes her clothes are gone, replaced by nothing but a thin towel. "Oh, you're finally awake!" a mysterious young man calls out from across the room. He offers a warm smile, clutching a sharp knife and some medicine, relieved she's alive. But the sight of that blade sends her into a frenzy, and she lunges at him with a scream. She slams him into the floor, demanding to know who he is and what he's after. Before he can even speak, massive vines explode from the ground right before her eyes. These roots coil around her body, crushing the air out of her lungs in an instant. Hashira collapses, her mind reeling from this sudden, brutal ambush. The massive vines hoist her into the air like a rag doll, dragging her away from him. "Thanks, Lent," he mutters, desperately begging the elf to just stop and listen for a second. She screams in a rage, accusing him of trying to murder her while she was defenseless. He panics and apologizes, realizing that holding the knife made him look like a cold-blooded killer. He swears he wasn't attacking, but she's not buying it, keeping her guard up. He explains that he saved her life after finding her bleeding out and freezing by the riverbank. Suddenly, the memories flood back. She remembers the horrific attack in the great forest of death. She touched her side and froze. The agonizing pain had completely vanished. He scrambled to explain that Lent was the one who changed her clothes, not him. "Lent, set her free," Hashira ordered his silent guardian. Instantly, the massive wooden vines retreated and sank back into the floorboards. The elf stood up warily, clutching her towel as if her life depended on it. Hashira looked away in a total panic, desperately trying to give her some privacy. Her eyes nearly popped out of her head as she looked down at herself. That lethal wound from the armored bear was gone. Erased as if it never happened. She was totally speechless, unable to process how she'd made such an impossible recovery. Ashira turned back with a gentle smile, asking if she was finally feeling better. The camera pans to a rustic cottage, a home forged by magic sitting right under a heavy blanket of clouds. Lydia grips the medicine jar tight, whispering that this very bottle was her literal lifesaver. She's totally baffled because medicine is supposed to be swallowed, not just rubbed on the skin. Hashira just gives a shy, awkward grin, knowing his bizarre powers are almost impossible to explain. Suddenly, Lydia's eyes lock onto a beautifully decorated knife resting right by the fireplace. She points to a stone cup, asking in disbelief if he actually carved it with that blade. He proves it right then and there, slicing through solid stone like butter with a blade that looks like plain wood. Lydia's jaw hits the floor, unable to comprehend how a wooden knife could possibly shred through rock. She stands there in a frozen silence, her mind racing to make sense of this impossible feat. Hashira catches her stunned expression and looks her over with a flicker of genuine concern. Drowning in shame, Lydia dropped into a deep bow, begging for forgiveness for attacking the man who saved her. He panicked and waved his hands wildly, desperate for her to finally look up from the dirt. He quickly reassured her that since they both walked away without a scratch, there was nothing to worry about. He introduced himself as Hashira, telling her to skip the formalities and just call him by his name. A bright smile lit up her face as she introduced herself as Lydia and wished him the very best. Then she dropped a bombshell. She wasn't just a regular elf, she was a prestigious high elf. She explained that high elves are legendary beings, blessed with incredibly long lives and massive magical reserves. But even with her status, she admitted she was totally powerless against the forest's most savage monsters. Hashira stood there looking completely lost, a massive question mark practically hovering over his head. He finally spoke up, asking if this great forest of death she was talking about was actually this very spot. Lydia beams with excitement, gesturing wildly to show off the massive territory on a mental map. She's absolutely stunned, asking how on earth he's been living here without knowing a single thing. He flips the script, demanding to know why a legendary high elf would ever set foot in a place like this. Her face turns bright red as she stammers that she's just here for the scenery. Then, the truth explodes out of her. She's just bored out of her mind after living for centuries. Hashir's brain short-circuits as he tries to wrap his head around her insane lifespan. He pivots fast to save the conversation, asking her if she knows anything about the Gannard. Lydia tilts her head in confusion, digging through her memories to figure out what that beast even is. Suddenly, she points right behind him and shouts that there's one standing right there. Totally baffled, Hashira spins around to see exactly what she's looking at. His eyes landed on Lent, his silent, leafy partner sitting as still as a stone. He questioned if she was talking about Lent, desperate to know if his friend was actually a legendary Gaianort. He argued that Lent was nothing more than a wooden golem, but Lydia shut him down instantly. She revealed that a Gaianort is a divine spirit, a true guardian of the natural world. Hashira reached out and patted Lent, his mind blown by the sheer power hidden within his companion. Lydia realized that with a Gaianort by their side, surviving in this place might actually be possible. She hoisted the green deer pelt into the air, warning him that this came from a truly lethal predator. Hashira's jaw dropped as he realized he'd taken down a high-level monster without even knowing it. They huddled by the flickering flames, haunted by the terrifying secrets lurking in their new home. Hashira watched her closely, realizing Lydia was still far from being fully healed. He offered her a safe haven, inviting her to stay until her wounds were completely healed. Lydia's eyes sparkled with pure delight as she eagerly accepted his generous offer. But wait, she had a special request of her own to pitch to him. She was dying to explore the dangerous forest, knowing that with him she'd finally be safe. Hashira went dead silent, carefully weighing her wild and adventurous proposal. Mistaking his silence for doubt, she puffed out her chest, ready to prove she wasn't dead weight. He quickly cleared the air, explaining he just needed some extra help smoking all that meat. Lydia stood there frozen, completely blindsided by such a hilariously ordinary request. She shouted her agreement, and he began giving her the grand tour of his humble abode. And just like that, it's official. A legendary high elf has moved in for good. The sun breaks over the horizon, revealing a stunning view of mountains draped in mist. Hashira stands ready in the clearing, taking aim with the bow he built with his own two hands. His very first shot strikes true, and he can already feel that today is going to be legendary. We see a close-up of the arrow as it bites hard into the target's outer ring. Standing right there, Lent flashes him a dazzling, high-energy thumbs up. Hashira just laughs, realizing that the simple act of firing arrows is a total blast. Lydia steps out from the house, greeting the guys with a smile that could light up the world. She's beaming, raving about how fluffy her leaf bed was and how warm that deer pelt kept her. She mentions it's been a lifetime since she's spoken to anyone who wasn't a literal god. She catches sight of the archery range and is totally shocked by its unique location. Her eyes then drifted to the house, marveling at its incredible and unique design. She couldn't believe how solid it was, asking if he was some kind of master architect. He just laughed it off, explaining he built the entire thing using his own secret power. Lydia stared at him, her face a mix of pure confusion and total wonder. He decided to show her, forcing a nearby tree to twist and surge upward at his command. He revealed he could make life bloom anywhere, leaving Lydia absolutely shell-shocked. Hashira noticed she was frozen in silence and immediately cut off his demonstration. He asked if she was okay, but she could only stammer as she struggled to speak. She whispered that he commanded a Gaianort, wielding absolute authority over nature itself. With total reverence in her eyes, she asked if he was actually a legendary great spirit. He insists he's just a regular guy, but she explains that elves practically worship spirits like him. He begs her to just treat him like a normal person, and she finally, hesitantly, agrees. He offers to show her the fields, but she stops him right in his tracks. Now that she's feeling better, she asks to borrow a weapon to sharpen her skills. He's totally on board, thinking a bow is the perfect fit for an elf. He flashes a grin, telling her that archery suits her image perfectly. Her face turns red as she playfully asks what he's trying to say. She officially asks to borrow his bow, and he's more than happy to hand it over. He holds out the simple weapon, admitting it's just a basic amateur build. He presents the handcrafted longbow to her with a smile. She thanked him, her eyes sparkling as she admired the weapon's rugged yet stunning craftsmanship. He asked if she'd been fighting defenseless, but she immediately shut that idea down. She revealed that a monstrous armored bear had absolutely pulverized her original bow. Hashira's heart sank as he realized just how close she had come to a brutal death. Lydia locked into her stance, her entire aura shifting into that of a cold-blooded master archer. She released a a shot that screamed through the air with terrifying speed and raw power. Her eyes narrowed, burning with a sharp and deadly focus. Her arrow slammed into his, splitting the shaft perfectly down the center. They stood frozen on the hill, staring in disbelief at her flawless god-tier accuracy. She flashed a confident smirk, teasing that she was actually a little out of practice. She lets loose a second shot, packing even more explosive power than before. The arrow slams into the bullseye, shattering the target into a million wooden shards. Hashira is absolutely blown away by her god-tier talent and showers her with praise. She just shrugs it off, claiming that any random elf could pull off a shot like that. As he watches her move, a brilliant idea suddenly strikes Hashira. He begs her to train him, admitting his own aim is straight-up garbage. He takes a massive breath and tries his absolute hardest to copy her perfect form. His arrow flies completely wild, missing the mark and flopping uselessly into the grass. He slumps down in defeat while Lydia realizes his skills are even worse than she imagined. Lydia kicks off the lesson, declaring that mastering the stance is the first step to victory. She steps in and forces his back straight, demanding he fix that posture. She barks out orders, showing him the exact way to lock his elbow into place. "Is this it? Is my form right?" he asks, desperate for her approval. "You're overextending," she snaps, spotting his mistake instantly. She grabs his arm and levels it out, making sure that arrow is perfectly horizontal. His heart hammers against his ribs as her sweet scent hits him. She's way too close. "Focus, you idiot!" he screams internally, desperately trying to keep his head in the game. "Release!" she commands, ordering him to fire without breaking his stance. Hashira's eyes sharpen with intense focus as he prepares to let the arrow fly. The arrow screams through the air, cutting a path as straight as a laser beam. The arrow slams into the wood with a heavy thud, a perfect, dead-center bullseye. Hashira's eyes go wide as he stares at the target, completely stunned by his own success. He shouts that he's never felt better, while Lydia cheers him on with pure excitement. He thanks her quickly, desperate to prove he can do it all over again on his own. But his next attempt is a total train wreck as the arrow flies wildly off course. He curses his lack of skill, but Lydia is quick to point out exactly what he's doing wrong. A funny little doodle appears, perfectly capturing his frustration with how hard this actually is. Suddenly, a stick whistles through the air and strikes the target right in the heart. They whip around to find the silent golem, Lent, standing there as cool as can be. Lent flashes a triumphant thumbs up, basically declaring himself the ultimate winner. Lydia bursts out laughing, teasing Ashira that even Lent has better aim. We cut to the heart of the forest, where dewdrops glisten on the vibrant greenery. With the hard work finished, Hashira decides it's finally time to dig into some breakfast. He pulls out a basket overflowing with veggies and asks Lydia if she's ever tasted them before. She picks up a bizarre round fruit, dying to know exactly what it is. He explains it's a chewy fruit, the absolute go-to meal in these parts. Suddenly, Lydia's stomach roars with a hilariously loud growl that echoes through the trees. Hashira lets out a chuckle, telling her he'll explain everything once they start eating. He instructs her to strip away the skin and sink her teeth into the soft white pulp inside. She takes a massive, adventurous bite, savoring the strange texture of the fruit. Her eyes sparkle with pure joy as she realizes just how chewy and flavorful this treat really is. She devours every bite, claiming it blows that bland city-bought bread right out of the water. Hashira beams with pride at her reaction and immediately offers her a second helping. We get a close-up of bowls overflowing with vibrant, freshly harvested wild greens. He remembers that she's actually tried these exact vegetables once before. He challenges her to give them a taste and judge the quality of his latest harvest. She jumps at the chance, confidently telling him she's the perfect person for the job. The second the food hits her tongue, her face freezes in absolute disbelief. She screams that this is light years better than any wild version she's ever tasted. She's stunned, questioning if it's his god-tier farming skills or just the incredible soil. He humbly gives all the credit to the divine grace of the goddess Elfra. Lydia's eyes light up as she begs for just one more of those delicious chewy fruits. He offers to grill the next one to perfection, and she jumps at the chance. He reminds her she needs to feast if she wants to recover all that lost blood. He tells her to fuel up now because their afternoon trek is going to be intense. Lydia is practically vibrating with hype at the thought of seeing those legendary giant trees. She's ready to dive into the unknown, trusting Shira and Lent to keep her safe from harm. She asks to arm herself with a bow, determined to defend herself while they scout the wilds. He hands it over with a stern warning not to push herself, sending a deep blush across her face. She keeps stuffing her face while he realizes she's secretly itching to hunt down some small game. The camera sweeps across a massive field of swaying grass beneath a crystal-clear sky. Hashira checks if she's ready for action, and she gives him a confident nod. With one last word, the three of them plunge deep into the shadows of the woods. Their Their jaws drop as they stare up at a massive ancient tree glowing in the sunlight. Lydia is absolutely stunned by the gargantuan scale of these towering giants. Hashira asks if she's a fan of the wild, and she admits she loves it. She explains that as an elf, her very soul feels at home in the heart of nature. He wonders if her old home was just as lush and green as this place. She admits her home was a great forest, but it was nothing compared to this massive scale. She reveals she got sick of her boring, repetitive life and finally hit the road for adventure. She flips the script and asks him all about the world he left behind. Hashira hesitates, searching for the right words to describe his former life. A sudden flashback hits, showing a suffocating city drowning in chaos and stress. The camera zooms in on a simple plate of pancakes from his old world. Lydia calls it a total nightmare, and Hashira can't help but agree. With a faint smile, he admits his family was the only thing that made it all worth it. Lydia is completely shaken by his tragic story, gasping in pure shock. She immediately apologizes, feeling guilty for digging up such a painful memory. But then he realizes his choice of words might have been a bit too intense. He quickly clears the air, telling her not to worry because he's the one who actually died. He pivots the conversation, dying to know what life is really like for an elf. She paints a picture of their homes, carved directly into massive, hollowed-out structures. Curious about their diet, he assumes they probably skip out on eating meat. She smiles, ready to show him exactly what's on the elven menu tonight. Suddenly, her eagle eyes lock onto a tiny rabbit miles away in the distance. We zoom in on the little white fluff ball sitting perfectly still in a forest clearing. It's a massive distance away, but she's already got her target locked in. Hashira is stunned by her god-tier vision as she asks for permission to take the shot. He gives her the green light, thrilled at the thought of extra meat for their feast. With the grace of a master, she notches an arrow in one lightning-fast motion. She locks onto her target, pulling the bowstring back until it's ready to snap. With a thunderous thrum, the arrow screams through the air. It's nothing but a lethal blur as it tears through the dense trees. Bullseye! The rabbit drops instantly, taken down by her flawless aim. Hashira is blown away by her talent, making her blush as she offers a shy thanks. She confesses that she could never pull off his insane hunting style in these woods. He reveals his secret. He simply traps his prey using the power of wood. He locks eyes with a bird nearby, ready to show off exactly what he can do. Suddenly, a branch erupts and twists into a living cage, snaring the bird in seconds. He holds up his prize with a grin, declaring their hunt a total victory. Lydia's jaw drops as she stands paralyzed by that overwhelming explosion of magic. There's no doubt about it. Hashira is the absolute apex predator of this forest. Out of nowhere, a strange, sugary scent catches the breeze and drifts their way. Lydia closes her eyes, completely mesmerized by the heavenly aroma. They start dreaming of exotic flowers dripping with honey and ripe, juicy fruit. Lydia focuses all her senses, desperately trying to hunt down the source of that smell. With a triumphant beam, she announces that she's finally tracked it down. She charges forward, aggressively shoving her way through the thick, thorny bushes. Their breath hitches in perfect sync as their faces freeze in total bone-chilling shock. Towering over the clearing, Hashira and Lydia come face to face with a massive, monstrous plant. A system notification pops up, warning him that this thing is a bloodthirsty, man-eating killer plant. But Hashira just smirks, knowing that no matter how scary it looks, it's still just a weed to him. Lydia loses it, screaming for him to run for his life before they both get devoured. To her absolute horror, he just reaches out and gives the beast a gentle pat, telling her everything is under control. Suddenly, the plant's petals rip open, exposing a massive, terrifying mouth packed with razor-sharp teeth. In a flash, a swarm of jagged, thorny vines whip through the air, aiming straight for their throats. Hashira reacts instantly, shoving Lydia out of the way just as the lethal vines strike. He stands his ground and raises his hand, his eyes burning with intensity as he stares down the beast. Gripping his divine staff, he barks a command that freezes the deadly vines dead in their tracks. Lydia is left stunned, watching in disbelief as he bends this monstrous plant to his absolute will. Hashira flashes a confident smirk, confirming that he's got the situation completely handled. The plant's jagged, toothy maw trembles as it realizes it's no longer the one in charge. He knows this beast is a savage killer, but a wild new idea is already brewing in his head. He looks at Lydia and suggests planting this monster right in the middle of their fields. Lydia is absolutely horrified that he's actually offering a home to a man-eating predator. He vows to look after the creature as long as it swears to protect their farm from intruders. The massive, towering plant begins to twist and fold itself through sheer magical force. force. It shrinks down into a tiny, smooth pod that tumbles onto the forest floor. Hashira grabs the pod, wondering if planting this beast at their house is the right move. The trio finally heads for home, making sure to grab their hard-earned hunt on the way. We cut back to their peaceful home, basking under a crystal-clear sky. Hashira looms over the buried pod, ready to unleash his legendary growth magic. He hovers his hands over the dirt, channeling a surge of divine green energy. Suddenly, a tiny sprout explodes from the earth in a shower of magical sparks. The pod shimmers and expands, twisting into a bizarre and unexpected new form. An adorable little flower creature with a grumpy, frowning face crawls out of its nest. Lydia is instantly head over heels, desperately asking if the little guy remembers them. The tiny plant creature looks up and gives them a slow, knowing nod. Hashira steps forward to introduce himself and his beautiful companion, the high elf Lydia. Finally, he gestures to the massive golem standing guard behind them, the mighty Lent. He makes it clear. They're all set, and this plant is going to be the ultimate bodyguard for their fields. The creature lets out a toothy grin and nods enthusiastically, clearly thrilled with the plan. Suddenly, a vine snakes out toward Hashira, offering him a mysterious parting gift. It drops a bizarre, bug-shaped seed right into the palm of his hand. A system window pops up, revealing this is a specialized seed designed for one thing: total insect annihilation. Hashira beams with excitement, knowing this is exactly what the farm needs to thrive. The creature reaches out and gives Lydia's simple bracelet a playful, gentle tap. Lydia can't help but gush over how adorable it is. Hardly the behavior you'd expect from a lethal predator. Suddenly, a stray fly zips past Lydia's head, catching her completely off guard. In a flash of movement, the plant's stalk whips out with blinding speed and snatches the fly right out of the air. Hashira lets out a hearty laugh, while a relieved Lydia gives their new ally some well-deserved head pats. Night falls over the house, blanketing the sky in a breathtaking sea of shimmering stars. Under the glow of a crescent moon, Lydia calls out to Hashira from the porch. He wonders what's up, letting her know the rabbit meat is sizzling and almost ready to serve. A tiny chibi Lydia starts drooling, already tasting that delicious meal in her head. Suddenly, she holds out a handful of glittering crystals and glowing magic stones. She reveals she scavenged these from fallen monsters, hoping to trade them for a mountain of cold, hard cash. These gems are priceless, used to forge legendary weapons and powerful magic artifacts. She looks at Hashira, asking if he can feel the raw magical energy pulsing inside them. But Hashira just grins, admitting he doesn't have a single drop of magic in his entire body. Suddenly, it all clicks for Lydia. She finally realizes why he couldn't spark a single flame. Despite his insane powers, he starts to doubt if he's even cut out for the mystic arts. Lydia steps up to test his potential, certain she can find a spell that fits him perfectly. She reaches out and grabs his hand, shutting her eyes to focus on the raw mana swirling inside him. The verdict is in: he's got a massive talent for earth magic, but his fire affinity is a total zero. Hashira curses his rotten luck, frustrated that he's completely useless with a flame. A humble bowl of soup sits between them, steam rising as they talk. He looks her in the eye and asks exactly how he's supposed to start training his powers. Lydia breaks it down, explaining that mana flows through your veins just like the blood in your heart. She's going to show him the ropes, and he needs to feel every single spark as her magic comes to life. Hashira is pumped, practically begging her to take him under her wing. He makes a solemn vow to keep his archery training sharper than ever. We cut straight to the demon kingdom of Belphegor, deep inside the demon king's lair. A menacing gothic spire looms like a shadow against the terrifying night sky. A voice filled with pure desperation cries out for the princess from deep within the fortress. A maid is in a total panic, sprinting through the halls to find her missing mistress. But Carmilla, the demon princess, is just hiding nearby, completely annoyed by her maid's nagging. Cray keeps shouting her name, refusing to stop until she finds her princess. Carmilla realizes that if she stays put, her cover is definitely going to be blown. With no other choice, she decides to bolt and escape the castle grounds immediately. She rounds the corner, only to run smack into another maid's piercing gaze. The maid screams at the top of her lungs that the princess has finally been spotted. Busted. Carmilla just gives a cheeky smirk and sticks her tongue out at her pursuer. She rockets into the sky, unfurling her massive wings as the maid's desperate cries fade below. Suddenly, a squad of armored dragon guards is commanded to hunt down the runaway royal. These monsters lunge forward, leveling their deadly spears to strike her down midair. But Carmilla just grins with total confidence, her terrifying aura surging as she prepares to fight back. With a casual flick of her wrist, she readies a devastating spell to end this chase. Boom! A massive surge of dark energy erupts from her fingertips in a blinding flash. The guards are sent flying like rag dolls, completely crushed by her insane magical power. The maid realizes that ordinary soldiers don't stand a ghost of a chance against the princess's overwhelming might. High above in the midnight sky, Carmilla hovers while plotting her next move. She sets her sights on the great forest of death, craving some serious entertainment. Panic strikes the maid as she screams out, begging to know where her mistress is headed. With a playful grin, Carmilla streaks across the sky, shouting that she's just going to the forest for a little fun. We cut back to the peaceful clearing where Hashira is focused on his training. Perched on his porch, Hashira obsesses over the first hurdle, mastering the art of mana manipulation. He follows Lydia's lead, desperately trying to condense all that raw energy right at the tip of his finger. Lydia warns him that the next step is to surge that power through every single vein in his body. The end goal is total mastery, allowing him to command the energy with a single thought. The scene shifts as time begins to fly by. Hashir grinds his teeth, realizing this training is way harder than he ever imagined. Suddenly, a flicker of pure light erupts right at the tip of his finger. He smirks, thinking it's a pretty solid feat for a guy who used to sit behind a desk. Days pass, and Link hauls the massive carcass of a tusked beast back home. Lydia admits that even for a pro like him, taking down that devil fong was no easy task. Hashira gives his thanks and asks Lent to start carving up the prize like he always does. Lydia tosses Hashira a heavy pouch overflowing with glowing magic stones. He beams with gratitude, knowing these massive gems are going to sell for a fortune. But as Hashira reaches for the loot, his fingers slip in a split second of pure clumsiness. Shimmering magic crystals soar through the sky, plummeting straight toward the garden. A priceless mana stone slams into the dirt, landing right next to a tiny sprout. Lydia's jaw drops as she claps a hand over her mouth in pure, unadulterated shock. The solid stone liquefies instantly, splashing into the soil like it was nothing but water. Hashira stands frozen, his mind reeling as he tries to process this impossible sight. He drops to his knees, shouting in disbelief that the earth literally swallowed the stone whole. He stares at the ground, desperately trying to make sense of the miracle he just witnessed. Suddenly, the nearby crops explode with life, blooming into full flower in the blink of an eye. With a shaking finger, Hashira stammers, asking Lydia if those plants just grew right before their eyes. He leans in close, scouring the dirt around these supercharged plants for any clue. He scoops up a handful of dirt, shocked to find it still overflowing with life instead of being drained dry. He realizes the stone's raw magic is literally morphing into super nutrients for the earth. Lydia's eyes go wide as she realizes these stones are the most powerful fertilizer in existence. Hashira asks if this is common, but Lydia admits this miracle only happens on his legendary land. A genius plan sparks in his mind. He'll use the highest grade stones to dominate the market. His focus is shattered when little Kichin gives his sleeve a gentle, persistent tug. He asks if the tiny plant wants a stone, and it nods back with pure, adorable excitement. Lydia smiles, knowing this mana-soaked stone is a delicious, high-energy treat for their guardian. Hashira realizes he can use these stones to instantly revitalize the soil after every single harvest. He marvels at this incredible discovery. These magic stones just became his most valuable resource. Hidden from view, a winged figure with crimson hair looms over them from the shadows. This little girl screams down at them, her voice dripping with pure, unearned arrogance. She dives from the heavens, her tiny frame radiating a blinding celestial light. She touches down with perfect grace and demands to know why they've trespassed on her land. Hashira's jaw drops. He can't believe a tiny child is literally floating in mid-air. Lydia's heart sinks as she realizes the terrifying truth. This girl is a demon, but this is no low-level grunt. She's a high-ranking monster with insane authority. Lydia trembles, sensing that this little girl's mana completely eclipses her own. The demon princess snaps, losing her patience as she asks if they're deaf. Hashira keeps his cool, explaining they're just working the fields they call home. Hashira keeps it classy, introducing himself with a polite bow and asking for her name. Following his lead, Lydia steps forward and reveals her name to the mysterious girl. The princess finds it absolutely hilarious that a human and a high elf are actually roommates. Striking a legendary pose, she declares herself as Carmilla, the daughter of the Demon King. This bombshell revelation leaves both Hashira and Lydia completely frozen in shock. Lydia whispers that with power that intense, there's no way she's lying. Carmilla scans their homestead, her eyes lighting up with genuine curiosity. She's stunned to see a fully built house standing right in the middle of the brutal wilderness. To her, the idea of these two trying to conquer the forest of death is pure comedy. Hashira offers her a taste of their legendary crops, and she jumps at the chance to try them. He realizes that despite her legendary title, She's really just a sweet, innocent little girl. He guides her toward a grove of trees heavy with bizarre, bud-shaped mochi fruits. He explains that this is their main source of food and asks if she's ever tasted it before. With a quick, gentle twist, he snaps a perfectly ripe fruit right off the branch. He expertly peels back the leafy outer skin, revealing the incredibly soft pulp inside. He hands the snack to the wide-eyed princess and tells her to go ahead and dig in. Carmilla is instantly shocked by how insanely soft and squishy the fruit feels. She cheers about how delightfully soft it is, playfully bouncing it in her hands. Her curiosity is at an all-time high as she prepares to take her very first bite. She sinks her teeth into the doughy fruit with one massive, eager chomp. Her eyes widen in pure bliss as that incredible flavor explodes on her tongue. She instantly demands more, desperate to find another dish just as heavenly. Hashira offers up some wild veggies, but Carmilla scoffs, making it clear she absolutely loathes greens. He realizes right then that her picky appetite is exactly like a spoiled brat's. His eyes drift over to a nearby orchard filled with apple-like gravalingo trees. Carmilla's face brightens instantly, shouting that she'd take those over gross vegetables any day. Lydia tries to cut her off, warning that the fruit hasn't even ripened yet. Hashira tells Lydia to relax, deciding it's best to just spoil their royal guest for once. He warns Carmilla that these gravalingos aren't exactly ready to be picked. Carmilla brushes him off like a queen, declaring that she's craving fruit and she wants it now. Giving in with a heavy sigh, Hashira finally agrees to grab one for her. He plucks a fresh gravelingo and hands it right to the hyped-up demon princess. Without a second thought, she sinks her teeth in for a massive, satisfying crunch. An absolute explosion of flavor hits her senses, leaving her stunned and speechless. "What is this?" she screams, convinced that a taste this divine can't possibly be real. Hashira then offers a slice to Lydia so she can experience the magic for herself. They both realize it's not even fully ripe yet, meaning the flavor will only get more legendary. Carmilla is absolutely floored that they'd consider such a heavenly taste to be unfinished. Hashira beams with pride, overjoyed to hear such glowing praise for the fruit he grew. A faint, satisfied blush creeps onto his face as he basks in the moment. He realizes that true joy is meant to be shared, not kept all to himself. Carmilla gazes at the fruit, her eyes gleaming with a sudden calculating hunger. A wicked, fanged grin stretches across her face as a devious plan takes shape. She looks toward the horizon and declares that her choice has finally been made. With a dramatic flourish, she proclaims that this entire territory is now her personal domain. Hashira and Lydia are left totally speechless, begging her to say that one more time. The chapter cover reveals a smug Carmilla, the Demon King's own mischievous daughter. Lydia is lost for words, but Hashira's face instantly hardens with suspicion. Carmilla doubles down, mockingly asking if they missed her demand the first time. Hashira stares her down, demanding she explain exactly what she means by that insane claim. She boldly claims the fields as her own, demanding that everyone work under her thumb. Hashira realizes she isn't looking to buy the land, she's just taking it. Carmilla sneers that they should be honored to serve the daughter of the Demon King himself. Lydia slams her foot down, ready to explode at this insane demand. She whips around to face Carmilla, shouting for her to hold on a second. She argues that even if the land is free, she can't just steal it for herself. Hashira watches in awe as Lydia pours her heart into defending their new home. Carmilla's face twists in fury, insulted that a lowly elf would dare talk back to her. Hashira admits he's completely lost when it comes to these complex territorial disputes. Carmilla's eyes narrow into deadly slits as she growls that she wants this land, period. She explodes with a wave of suffocating magic, knocking everyone off their feet. Hashira grinds his teeth as Carmilla's jagged aura slices right through him. This is it, the terrifying raw power of the Demon King's own daughter. But he refuses to break, squeezing his fist until his knuckles turn white. He snaps his head up and roars a defiant "No!" that echoes through the air. He screams that these fields were built with their blood, sweat, and tears. There's no way he'll ever bow down to such a selfish, cruel demand. Carmilla's wicked, fanged grin returns as she whispers a bone-chilling response. "Is that right?" she sneers, her patience finally snapping as her power hits the boiling point. With zero mercy left, Carmilla fires a devastating blast to force them into submission. A torrential downpour of mystic fire screams from the heavens, obliterating the fields below. The blaze explodes instantly, swallowing their precious mochi trees in a terrifying violet inferno. Hashira and Lydia stand frozen in pure horror as every bit of their hard work goes up in smoke. Lydia shrieks in total disbelief, demanding to know how Carmilla could commit such a cruel act. Hashira dives headfirst headfirst into the chaos, desperately clawing at the magical flames to snuff them out. He lets out a frustrated curse as his simple branch proves useless against that blistering heat. Even the thickest wood is absolutely powerless to stop this overwhelming otherworldly blaze. The entire grove is swallowed whole, leaving nothing behind but scorched earth and blackened ash. Hashira whips around to Lydia, begging her to unleash her magic and kill the fire before it's too late. High above the carnage, Carmilla watches with a smirk, casually calling out to get their attention. Hashira screams in rage, pointing at the ruined fields that are now nothing but trash. She just shrugs off his fury, coldly telling him they can always plant more. Her total lack of respect sends a wave of icy, murderous rage through Hashira's veins. He glares at the floating princess as his last shred of patience finally snaps. Carmilla wears a wicked smirk, sensing his bloodlust and taunting him to make a move. Hashira doesn't hesitate, thrusting his hand forward to unleash his hidden power. The wooden planks of his home rip apart, soaring toward her like a lethal storm of spears. The princess is stunned, completely blindsided by the sheer intensity of his assault. She's forced to twist and dive through the air to survive the relentless barrage. Hashira lets out a primal roar, demanding to know if she really thinks she can escape him. Her eyes widen in shock as she realizes he's bending the entire forest to his will. She grits her teeth, desperately fighting to survive the relentless barrage. She strikes back, unleashing a storm of devastating magical explosions. 6 radiant magic circles erupt, blasting the wooden spears right out of the sky. She lets out a mocking laugh, certain her raw power will crush his puny nature tricks. Hashira growls a warning. There's no escaping him in his own domain. Suddenly, the rigid spears morph into deadly, lashing vines. Carmilla screams in terror as the vines whip forward to trap her. They coil around her like snakes, crushing her body as she fights to break free. A magic circle flares to life as she pours everything into shattering her restraints. Her spells flicker out as the vines coil tighter, pinning her to the spot. Pure terror strikes her heart as she feels her own power being ripped away. Those glowing vines are literally drinking the mana straight from her veins. She lets out a blood-curdling shriek as her life force is sucked dry. She desperately pleads for him to stop, wailing that her magic is vanishing. Hashira vows to keep going until there's absolutely nothing left of her. His gaze is icy, fueled by a ruthless fury over her betrayal. Lydia lunges forward and grabs him, begging him not to become a murderer. Her frantic cries finally start to break through his blinding rage. She screams for him to release Carmilla, her voice trembling with pure desperation. He locks eyes with Lydia, and her voice finally pierces through his blinding fury, cooling his blood. Those lethal vines suddenly snap back, sending the limp princess crashing into the dirt. Hashira turns to Lydia with a heavy heart, confessing that his rage completely took control. Lydia sprints over to Carmilla, desperately checking to see if she's still breathing. It's bad. The princess is fading fast from a massive, life-threatening mana drain. Suddenly, Hashira remembers his secret weapon, a mana potion that could save her life. He bolts back toward the house, desperate to grab the healing elixir before it's too late. Lydia gazes at his retreating figure, her voice a soft whisper as she calls out his name. He stops in his tracks, and she offers a heartfelt thank you for listening to her plea. She tells him to breathe easy, promising him that his explosive anger was totally warranted. He looks away, his mind still reeling from the chaos as he mutters under his breath. His face is a mask of sorrow as he stares at the absolute devastation she left behind. He gazes at the charred, skeletal husks of the once beautiful mochi-mochi trees. Seeing his beloved grove in ruins leaves a cold, hollow ache in his chest. A dazed Carmilla stumbles awake, demanding to know if he's here to steal her father's crown. Totally fed up, Hashira snaps back that he just wants to live a quiet, peaceful life. He makes it crystal clear he couldn't care less about her or the Demon King's throne. Carmilla is stunned that a warrior this powerful could be such a total weirdo. She finally admits the truth. No matter what, he's the one who claimed victory in their duel. Her entire vibe shifts instantly as she dramatically commands him to name his deepest desire. Bashira's brow furrows, eyes locked on Lydia as he asks what she means by a wish. Carmilla steps in, laying down the demon code. The loser must obey the winner's every command. She confirms it's official. Hashira, as the champion, can demand absolutely anything. He shrugs it off at first, but then a sly, vengeful grin creeps onto his face. His eyes flash with a wicked spark as he drops a wildly unexpected request. Lydia and Carmilla exchange stunned, flustered glances at the bizarre demand. Carmilla smirks, thinking maybe hearing that from a stronger man isn't so bad after all. He explains she needs to be punished because she's blind to her own mistakes. Lydia lets out a confused squeak, totally missing the real meaning behind his words. Without warning, he hoists her over his knee, announcing it's his grandma's signature spanking technique. She screams in agony, wailing that losing all her mana should have been plenty of punishment. He snaps back that the mana drain was just self-defense. This is the real price for her crimes. He ups the ante, threatening to let Lent, the silent golem, take over the discipline. Terrified, she breaks down in tears and begs him to keep that monstrous Gaianort far away from her. Just the thought of that golem is enough to crush her spirit and force her into total submission. He gives her heart-shaped tail a playful flick, shocked by how incredibly smooth it feels. Lydia immediately snaps at him, warning that a demon's tail is their most sensitive spot. He offers a quick apology for his ignorance while a bright red Carmilla squirms in embarrassment. It reminds him of the times his sister used to chew him out for being so clueless. A hilarious chibi panel pops up as he hardens his heart to finish the punishment. The screen fades to black as we move past that insane punishment. Carmilla slowly picks herself up, her pride completely shattered. He drops a cold warning never to touch his fields again, and she instantly drops to the ground in submission. He demands to know if she has any clue just how much food she turned to ash. She mumbles under her breath that she has no idea how long it takes for crops to grow. A smirk creeps across his face as he reveals his simple prize for winning. He points a finger right at her and commands her to start working the fields. She loses it, screaming in disbelief that he actually expects her to do farm work. He stands his ground, making it clear she's going to pay for every bit of the chaos she caused. She throws a fit, demanding to know why a literal princess should be forced into manual labor. He flashes a devious smirk, questioning if the Demon King's own daughter is really a promise breaker. She absolutely loses it, screaming that she never once said she'd back down from her word. Pointing a finger right at him, she swears to grant his wish, while he secretly laughs at how easy she is to manipulate. He casually mentions it's getting late, and offers her a spare room for the night. He calls over Lydia to lead her to the bath, and Lydia is more than happy to help out. As the moon rises, the sheer insanity of the day finally starts to sink in. The sun comes up, and Hashira wastes no time using his powers to wall off a brand new plot of land. He points to the dirt and tells Carmilla her new job is to clear every inch of that field. She stares at the hoe and sickle in total confusion, wondering what these weird metal objects are even for. Carmilla grips the curved blade, stunned to find out this scythe is actually meant for pulling weeds. She grips the heavy hoe, finally realizing this is the key to tilling the earth. With a spark in her eyes, Carmilla admits to Ashira that she's never touched a farming tool in her life. He breaks it down for her. If they want to harvest, every single weed and stone has to go. Hashira flashes a smile, lifting a pebble to show her exactly what needs to be cleared out. Carmilla hunkers down in the brush, a devious glint appearing in her eyes as she spots the weeds. A predatory grin reveals her fangs as she suggests just torching the whole field to the ground. Hashira's expression turns cold, hitting her with a silent, bone-chilling glare that screams, "Absolutely not." Shaking under his overwhelming pressure, Carmilla panics and stammers that she was only joking. He points her toward a plot of land, and she jumps at the chance to prove herself. She clenches the sickle with pure resolve, ready to tear into the work ahead. She puts her back into it, slicing through the massive, tangled weeds with one mighty swing. A massive smile breaks across her face as she shouts that this is actually a total blast. Hashira and Lydia just stand there, stunned by how much she's actually loving this. Hashira is impressed by her raw honesty, but Lydia wonders how long this newfound patience will last. Suddenly, a prickly vine reaches out and taps Hashira right on the shoulder. He spins around to find a parched Keichan and realizes the little guy is dying for a drink. He calls out to Lydia for backup, and she jumps at the chance to hydrate the creature. Lydia channels her mana, manifesting a shimmering sphere of crystal-clear water between her palms. She douses Keichan in the magical spray, and the creature shivers with pure, refreshing joy. They stare in awe at the exploding harvest, all thanks to those high-powered magic stones they used for fertilizer. Carmilla grumbles under her breath, absolutely fed up with the endless weeds she still has to pull. She's fuming with jealousy, whining that it's totally unfair everyone else is having a blast while she's stuck working. Totally drained, she slams her tools down, but Hashira just smirks and asks if she's throwing in the towel already. She groans about her aching back, but he doesn't budge, telling her to suck it up and push through the pain. The princess blows out her cheeks in the most stubborn, childish pout you've ever seen. Hashira takes one look at her grumpy face, sighs deeply, and finally decides to cut her some slack. Her face lights up instantly as she pitches the idea of a massive break the second the weeding is done. She begs to go play with the plant monster, and surprisingly, Hashira actually gives her the green light. Fired up and ready to go, she vows to crush the rest of the work with everything she's got. Lydia heads off to soak the other fields, earning a quick word of thanks from Hashira. Hours drag on as a massive gray sky looms over the horizon. She tears through the thick brush, leaving nothing behind but a jagged pile of stones. Carmilla stands tall over the empty field, proudly showing off her hard-earned victory. Hashira scans the area and finally admits she's done enough to pass. He gives her the green light to rest, and she lets out a massive cheer of pure joy. She sprints away, shouting that she's finally going to pet that deadly killer plant. Out of nowhere, a vine lashes out and cracks her right across the skull. The monster plant pummels her relentlessly as she screams out in total shock and agony. She begs to know why it's being so mean, but he points out it's probably still fuming about the fire. Panicked, she wonders if there's any way left to win over this terrifying beast. He tells her the only way to prove she's serious is to keep pouring her heart into these fields. Her fists tighten as a fire ignites in her eyes, swearing to push herself past her limits. He offers her a break, but she refuses to stop, demanding to get right back into the action. It's time for the next lesson as he demonstrates exactly how to drive the hoe into the dirt. The heavy blade carves deep into the soil with a powerful bone-shaking thud. Watching him finish, Carmilla smirks, claiming this whole farming thing looks like a total breeze. She lets out a fierce grunt, grabbing the tool and bracing herself to show him what she's got. She unleashes a monstrous swing, slamming the hoe into the earth with pure, unbridled power. He warns her to take it easy, but she just laughs it off, bragging about her endless stamina. He can't help but watch her go, realizing that even if she's reckless, her spirit is absolutely unbreakable. Lydia steps onto the scene, voicing her deep concern over Carmilla's reckless and messy technique. He just brushes it off, remarking that the princess seems a bit too overconfident in her own raw power. Lydia heads out to prep some lunch while Carmilla keeps hacking away with absolute fury. She finally pauses to wipe the sweat from her brow as the brutal workout starts to drain her. Her once powerful swings are losing their edge, hitting the ground with a heavy, dull thud. She finally grinds to a halt, leaning heavily on her hoe just to catch her breath. Hashira shouts from the distance, mockingly asking where all that explosive energy went. She snaps back, complaining that this is way harder than weeding and her back is screaming in pain. A smug, knowing grin spreads across Hashira's face as he watches her struggle. He steps up to show her the perfect form, telling her to let the tool's weight do the work instead of her muscles. She puts the new technique to the test and is shocked by how effortlessly the soil gives way. Blown away, she praises his genius, realizing she didn't even have to break a sweat. A triumphant laugh bursts from her as she works, while Hashira watches on with a proud nod. He flashes an impressed grin, noting that her natural instincts are actually top tier. Watching her go, he realizes she's a much more capable worker than he ever imagined. Suddenly, Lydia's voice rings out from afar, announcing that lunch is finally served. He turns to Carmilla and suggests a lunch break, catching her completely off guard. The princess freezes, looking totally lost and unsure of her next move. With a shaky voice, she timidly asks if she's actually allowed to join him for the meal. Hashira turns back toward her, offering a warm and comforting smile to put her at ease. He makes it official. Since she's helping out, she's one of the gang now. Her face beams with pure joy as she celebrates finally being a true comrade. She proudly declares that she's absolutely joining them for the feast. Hashira gives a small, satisfied nod, clearly pleased with her answer. Lydia serves up a mouth-watering spread of hot soup and toasted matcha mochi fruit. The princess peers into her bowl and immediately starts whining about all the vegetables. Lydia urges her to give it a shot, promising she's in for a real surprise. With total reluctance, Carmilla stares down the steaming bowl of soup. Her spoon lifts a perfect mix of tender meat and veggies from the rich broth. She takes that first bite and her face instantly transforms in pure shock. Her eyes fly wide as the explosion of flavor catches her completely off guard. She shouts in shock, unable to believe there isn't a single hint of bitterness in these greens. She admits this meal absolutely destroys the nasty bitter stuff they serve back at the palace. Hashira digs into his own plate, savoring every bite of their hard-earned feast. He raves about the perfect harmony between the savory meat and the natural sweetness of the vegetables. He watches Carmilla scarf down her food like a beast, joking to himself that she doesn't look like royalty at all. A serene peace settles over their magical homestead as the afternoon rolls on. Carmilla gives Lydia a heartfelt thanks, leaving the cook beaming with pride. Hashira sips his tea with a smirk, satisfied that even the pickiest eater on earth loved their harvest. Suddenly, Carmilla goes dead silent, her face darkening as she gets lost in deep thought over the meal. She clutches her empty bowl, staring intensely into its gleaming, hollow surface. Sensing her sudden silence, Hashira rushes back to find out what's haunting her. Staring at her own reflection, she's crushed by the weight of the beauty she destroyed. Fueled by a sudden spark of resolve, she rises and marches straight toward the group. She drops into a deep bow, pouring her heart into a desperate apology and swearing to set things right. Hashira and Lydia are left speechless, stunned by the raw sincerity in her voice. Their shock melts away, replaced by warm, welcoming smiles of forgiveness. Lydia realizes that deep down, Carmilla is actually a soul of pure honesty and grit. Relieved that she finally understands, he reaches out and offers her a chance at redemption. But Carmilla roars a defiant no, completely shattering his offer with a flat-out rejection. She swears a solemn oath to stand by their side until the very bitter end. She's taking it upon herself to harvest the most legendary, mouth-watering crops ever. It's time to get to work, and she's locking in for the grind. She snaps her fiery red hair into a ponytail, her eyes burning with pure resolve. Hashira's heart sinks as she wonders if her parents are panicking about her safety. A chilling realization hits Lydia. The Demon King himself might be behind all of this. Dread washes over them both as they contemplate the terrifying reality of their situation. The massive, crystal-clear lake glimmers under the sun, stretching out as far as the eye can see. Lydia is all smiles as she scrubs their gear clean using his special homemade soap. She claims that a few simple herbs will perfectly mask any scent left behind. She thrusts the shirt into the air, spotless and gleaming with victory. He asks her to get his gear hanging up to dry in the sun. Lydia flashes a radiant smile and happily accepts the task. Ashura shouts across the water, demanding an update on Carmilla's fishing. Carmilla shows off her prize, a massive haul she snatched with her bare hands. She mocks Hashira, bragging that catching them was a total walk in the park. The sky glows with brilliant light over the dead silent water. He declares that it's officially time to get lunch started. She's totally hyped to charge into the forest and scavenge for supplies. She yells for Lent to fall in line as they disappear into the trees. Hashira dives deep into the thick forest, hunting for rare herbs. A grin spreads across his face as he finally spots exactly what he needs. It's fragrant rosemary, and it smells absolutely incredible. He also grabs some emasuba, a powerful plant known for its healing properties. With his stash complete, it's finally time to fire up the stove. The sun blazes through the clouds, signaling that the afternoon is just beginning. Carmilla wonders if they can just toss the fish straight onto the grill, but he stops her, explaining those rock-hard scales have to go first. He shows off his skills, expertly stripping away every single scale. This is a secret technique he mastered years ago from his own grandmother. With surgical precision, he decapitates the fish in one swift, expert motion. Then he delivers a flawless slice, carving through the meat like absolute butter. He shouts a warning, telling her to stay clear of those deadly razor-sharp spines. They rush to the stream to scrub the fresh catch until it's sparkling clean. His blade dances along the backbone, gliding through with effortless grace. Her eyes widen as she spots the perfect mouth-watering fillets taking shape. He declares that it's finally time to bring on the oil. He tosses in some fragrant rosemary and wraps the whole thing in massive, lush leaves. He reveals his secret. Those leaves are the key to unlocking an explosion of flavor. Lydia bursts back onto the scene, shouting that the laundry is finally bone dry. He tells them the feast begins the moment they swap into fresh clothes. Those leaf-wrapped parcels are sizzling and steaming over the roaring flames. The trio watches with wide eyes, their stomachs growling in pure anticipation. Finally, the perfectly steamed fish is served and ready to devour. Lydia can't believe her eyes, gushing over how mouth-watering the spread looks. Hashira leads the way, getting ready to bless this incredible bounty. In perfect unison, they offer their thanks before diving into the meal. Lydia takes a careful first bite, savoring the melt-in-your-mouth texture. She's blown away by the flavor, obsessed with the heavenly scent of fresh rosemary. Carmilla joins in, shouting about how sweet and insanely tender the meat is. He's absolutely blown away by her incredible catch. The sun blazes down, turning the massive, peaceful lake into a shimmering mirror. Carmilla is itching to get back and inspect the fields immediately. He's a bit skeptical, but she refuses to back down and insists on seeing for herself. Lydia notices that Carmilla has completely fallen in love with the farming life. He's just relieved the crops recovered without him having to drain his own mana. Suddenly, Hashira's head snaps to the side as his senses go on high alert. A tiny buzzing bee streaks right past Lydia's ear. He moves on pure instinct, yanking her out of the insect's flight path. But a dark thought crosses his mind. Is this really just a harmless honeybee? A sophisticated voice suddenly cuts through the air, demanding their immediate attention. He whirls toward Lydia to see if she spoke, but she looks completely baffled. The mysterious voice echoes again, telling him to look toward the heavens. He glances up and stumbles back in pure terror at the sight of a monstrous bee. Lydia's face pales as she identifies the beast as the legendary Hell Hornet Queen. The queen hovers low, revealing that she's been tracking him down this entire time. She breaks down the twisted life and death bond they share with that killer plant. Suddenly, the gravity of his mistakes hits Pashira like a physical blow. He's crushed by guilt for wrecking the delicate balance of their entire world. In a shocking twist, she asks him to take her hive under his absolute protection. protection. He accepts her deal and she can't thank him enough. He fires back with an epic offer, inviting her entire hive to move in right next door. The queen is absolutely stunned by his sudden and overwhelming generosity. All he asks for in exchange for his protection is a sweet share of their legendary honey. She's down for the deal, as long as they have plenty of flowers to feed on. He doesn't miss a beat, promising to grow every single flower they need with his own hands. He unleashes his power, and a vibrant new plant erupts from the ground right before her eyes. She's completely hypnotized by the flower's intoxicating and heavenly scent. She guarantees that these magical blooms will produce the most elite honey ever tasted. With the deal sealed, the queen heads off to bring her entire swarm back to their new home. The whole squad heads back home, basking in the good vibes. Lydia pitches a delicious plan: honey tasting paired with matcha mochi fruit. Carmilla's eyes light up as she vows to devour 3 of them herself. They finally reach their cozy, peaceful sanctuary deep in the woods. Suddenly, a mysterious winged figure dives straight down from the clouds. Carmilla snaps her head up, frozen in shock as a familiar voice calls her name. It's her loyal maid, Cray, who has finally tracked down her long-lost princess. Thinking her princess is in mortal danger, Cray launches a ferocious split-second attack. Keyshawn's razor-sharp vines whip out, instantly tangling and trapping the maid. Carmilla quickly steps in, confirming the attacker is actually her own caretaker, Cray. Grace thrashes against the constricting vines, screaming out for her princess. She spits fire, warning him to keep his filthy mouth shut when speaking to her lady. Without warning, the massive vines whip around and smash her body into the dirt. The trio flinches, watching this brutal yet effective display of protection. Agony rips through her as the relentless plants continue their savage assault. She's at her breaking point, desperately pleading for the vines to let her go. Carmilla begs him to call off Keyshawn's terrifying attack before it's too late. The plant guardian finally gives in, slowly loosening its crushing hold. Carmilla sprints to her fallen maid, her heart racing with worry. Utterly broken, Cray gasps out that she truly thought her life was over. Carmilla pulls her into a tight, protective hug, whispering that she's finally safe. Overwhelmed by such kindness, Cray's eyes flood with tears as her emotions boil over. Hashira and Lydia watch the heart-wrenching reunion, feeling a wave of awkward sympathy. The clouds vanish above the homestead, leaving a bright sky that signals a moment of pure peace. Hashira asks if she's feeling better, and a bashful Cray apologizes for her sudden outburst. She formally declares her name as Creever Million, a demon sworn to serve Lady Carmilla. With a friendly smile, Hashira introduces himself and gives her a warm welcome. He gestures toward Lydia, introducing the noble high elf to their new guest. When asked if she came all this way just for Carmilla, she confirms it with a firm nod. Cray explains that the princess has never been away from home for this long in her entire life. She pulls herself together and professionally informs the princess that it's time to move out. Carmilla's expression turns to stone as she screams a sharp, defiant, "No way!" She stands her ground, declaring that her work in this place is far from over. Cray is totally baffled, wondering what kind of responsibilities she could possibly have here. Carmilla balls her hand into a fist, admitting she acted like a total fool just moments ago. She confesses to wrecking the fields, never realizing how much blood, sweat, and tears went into them. Overwhelmed by guilt, she swears she won't leave until she's grown every single crop back. Cray is absolutely stunned by the princess's sudden and massive change of heart. She gets it, but she's terrified the Demon King will lose his mind if the princess doesn't return. Hashir nods along, suggesting they send a message back home before things get out of hand. Carmilla strokes her chin, her eyes narrowing as she weaves together a master plan. She commands Cray to head back to the castle and deliver the vital report. Cray lets out a blood-curdling shriek, paralyzed by the thought of braving that deadly forest alone. Noticing her sheer panic, Hashira raises his hand with the perfect solution. He proposes that Link act as both her elite bodyguard and her personal porter. The silent golem flashes a confident thumbs up, instantly accepting the dangerous mission. Cray beams with joy, shouting that she'll be invincible with a Gaianorth at her side. Hashira wears a satisfied grin, relieved that the problem was solved so effortlessly. He offers her a place to stay, knowing the forest turns into a death trap once the sun goes down. Darkness blankets the peaceful homestead as a sea of stars begins to shimmer above. Carmilla and Cray finally emerge from their soak, looking completely revitalized and refreshed. Hashira welcomes them by the glowing hearth, warmly telling Cray to make herself right at home. He beams, telling them their timing is flawless because the evening feast is officially served. A massive, mouth-watering spread sits before them, with a tiny note detailing every incredible dish. The whole crew huddles around the flickering flames as Hashira gives the signal to finally dig in. Lydia clasps her hands together, offering a silent, heartfelt prayer of thanks for the food. Carmilla catches a stunned Cray off guard, demanding she show some gratitude before touching her plate. Cray is totally baffled, stammering as she asks what words she's even supposed to say. The princess explains that it's their custom to honor the blessings of life before they eat. Bashir jumps in to clarify, telling her it's just a simple, everyday greeting before a meal. Cray flashes a soft smile, clasps her hands, and offers a heartfelt prayer of thanks. She dives straight for the steak, slicing into that massive, juicy slab of meat. She takes a massive bite, closing her eyes to soak in every bit of that incredible flavor. Her eyes snap open in pure shock as she screams about how insanely delicious it tastes. She starts devouring the meal with such intensity that it leaves Hashira absolutely stunned. He worries the seasoning might be too weak, but she shuts that down instantly. She raves about the melt-in-your-mouth meat and that perfectly refreshing, tangy sauce. Hashira beams with pride, thrilled to see their guest loving every single bite. Lydia reveals the secret. That sharp, unique kick comes from the legendary grave lingo fruit. She hands over some mochi fruit to Cray, who grabs it with a look of pure gratitude. Cray takes a bite of the salad and is absolutely stunned by the explosive, fresh flavor. Carmilla beams with pride, announcing that she's the one who raised and harvested these greens. She puffs out her chest with a smug grin, declaring that of course it's a masterpiece. She happily munches on a piece of ayanoko, obsessed with that sweet, satisfying crunch. Cray is completely floored to see the princess actually devouring her vegetables. She remembers how Carmilla used to reject them, even when they were chopped up and hidden. Hashir explains that while his crops aren't bitter, there's a much deeper secret at play. Carmilla adds that knowing the hard work behind the harvest makes every bite taste like heaven. Cray gazes at the princess, realizing just how much she's truly evolved. The princess's reptilian eye flashes with a sharp glint as she prepares to drop another truth bomb. She gushes to Cray about the massive forest strawberries she's currently growing. She's absolutely dying for them to ripen so she can finally have a taste. A warm, proud smile spreads across Cray's face as she watches over her princess. She realizes her lady has transformed into a completely different person in no time at all. The sun sets and rises again, bringing us straight to the break of dawn. Birds chirp atop the tiled roof as a brand new day begins. Cray tries to thank Hashira for his kindness, but he just brushes it off. Just as she's about to head out, Hashira remembers something absolutely vital. He stops her in her tracks and asks if she can handle a small favor. He explains that they're in desperate need of fresh seeds, seasonings, and basic supplies. He hands over a heavy pouch filled with magic stones ripped straight from the bodies of monsters. Cray examines a massive, shadowy crystal and realizes its quality is absolutely legendary. She finally agrees to take the matter to the Demon King, letting Hashir breathe a massive sigh of relief. Carmilla snaps at Cray to move it, terrified she'll miss out on the upcoming harvest. Christ grumbles that it's physically impossible to rush through a forest this crawling with danger. Hashira commands Lent to protect Cray with his life as they begin their journey. With an unstoppable guardian at her side, Cray waves a confident goodbye to the group. The three left behind shout their blessings, hoping for her safe return to the castle. They watch their messengers disappear, knowing they've just forged a vital link to the world outside. The sun rises on a brand new day as a beaming Carmilla and Lydia greet Hashira. He beams with a wide smile, calling out a bright, "Good morning!" from inside the house. He tasks them with crafting a hive for the lethal hell hornets, and they accept the job without a second thought. He's practically vibrating with excitement, dreaming of the legendary crops he's about to plant. He looks Carmilla in the eye and tells her he's counting on her, and she accepts the challenge with a fearless smirk. She puffs out her chest with pride, declaring that she's finally mastered her ultimate hoe technique. Lydia lets out a laugh at her fiery spirit, while Hashira watches on, blown away by her incredible growth. Hashira dives into action, tearing through the earth to clear a fresh plot for the deadly beehive. He brushes the dust off his palms, satisfied that this massive space is finally ready for construction. With the prep work finished, he gears up to build the massive main structure. His muscles scream as he heaves a colossal stone slab into its perfect position. Just laying down the foundation has him gasping for air and drenched in sweat. He meticulously pieces together the wooden frame, locking every joint of the apiary into place. With a grin, he slams on a sleek roof, finally finishing his handcrafted masterpiece. He wipes the grime from his forehead and cheers that the hive is officially ready for action. Out of nowhere, A smooth, feminine voice echoes his name from the shadows behind him. The Hell Hornet Queen has emerged, greeting him and marveling at his impeccable timing. He realizes she's traveled light this time, bringing only a handful of guards with her. To seal their brand new alliance, she presents him with a colossal, dripping honeycomb. He beams with pride as he shows off the structure, declaring it their brand new home. The Hell Hornet Queen showers Ashura with gratitude for the incredible hive he's constructed. Hashira stays humble, asking the queen if she'd be willing to show him how to master this new power. The queen agrees and immediately sends a scout to inspect every inch of the new structure. Hashira waits with bated breath, desperate to hear the final verdict on his hard work. The scout gives a huge thumbs up, reporting that the inside is incredibly cozy and perfectly insulated. A wave of relief washes over Hashira as the scout pops its head out and declares its love for the new hive. The queen is absolutely thrilled, and Hashira promises to take any future feedback to heart. Ready to add the finishing touch, he prepares to unleash his incredible unique power. The queen watches in awe as his divine staff erupts with a brilliant green glow. He declares that he's going to sprout a field of flowers that the bees will absolutely adore. With a massive surge of energy, he slams his glowing staff deep into the earth. A massive surge of life magic explodes as a stunning garden bursts into bloom in the blink of an eye. The queen stands frozen, her jaw dropping at the sheer majesty of this magical miracle. Hashira is totally drained, but a proud smirk crawls across his face as he admires his floral masterpiece. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the queen declares that his power has secured a bright future for her entire people. To seal their brand new alliance, she gifts him a massive golden honeycomb dripping with sweetness. Hashira beams, knowing sugar is the ultimate cure for exhaustion, and calls for a much-needed break. Lydia rallies the troops, shouting for everyone to join in on a wild, spontaneous honey feast. They dive in, smothering soft, pillowy mochi fruit in that rich golden nectar. Fast forward a few days, and a tranquil sun rises over their peaceful new home. The demon Princess Carmilla finally stirs, rubbing the sleep from her eyes as she greets the day. She throws on her outfit in a flash, looking absolutely radiant in her rose-covered dress. Bursting with hype, she shouts that she's ready to crush today's work. She gives a massive shout to Lydia, who's already outside grinding away at the new beehive. Carmilla declares she's more fired up than ever to dominate this strawberry harvest. Lydia stops her, insisting they fuel up with a massive breakfast to get their strength up. Out in the fields, the plants are practically sagging under the weight of massive, juicy strawberries. Hashira steps in, carefully teaching Carmilla exactly how to spot the ultimate berries. He singles out a massive, deep red strawberry that's just begging to be picked. Lydia thrusts a basket forward, daring the hyped-up princess to finally start the harvest. But suddenly, Carmilla freezes, a look of pure hesitation washing over her face. Now that the big moment is finally here, she admits her heart is wavering with doubt. Hashira listens in silence, his expression showing he knows exactly what she's going through. He crouches down to her level, deciding it's time to open up about his own history. He thinks back to his very first harvest, remembering how it felt like a waste to pick what he'd nurtured. Carmilla is stunned to find out that he struggled with those same exact feelings. She finally sees the truth. It's the love and care she poured into them that's making it so hard to let go. Bashir agrees, but tells her that harvesting is actually the highest form of respect for their life. His words spark a new fire in her, and she finally reaches out toward the fruit. With a heart full of reverence, she gently plucks a single flawless strawberry from the vine. She lifts it up like a priceless treasure, declaring to the world that she raised this herself. Bashira beams with a wide grin, urging her to take the very first bite. She chomps down, her tiny fangs piercing right into the sugary crimson fruit. Her eyes sparkle as she shouts how tasty it is, while Lydia showers her with praise for all her effort. Overwhelmed with joy and pride, she demands that they join in and taste the fruit for themselves. Hashira double-checks if she's serious, and she gives him a massive, enthusiastic yes! He and Lydia gladly take her up on the offer, grabbing a juicy strawberry for themselves. Lydia tosses the berry into her mouth, her face instantly lighting up with pure, unadulterated bliss. Hashira takes a bite too, soaking in the sweet flavor of their hard-earned victory. They both rave about the incredible taste, leaving Carmilla absolutely glowing with pride. Lydia points out that while they're amazing fresh, these berries would make some legendary jam. Carmilla gazes at the strawberry in her hand, her mind racing with deep emotion. She realizes there's no greater joy than hearing people praise praise the fruits of your own hard work. Hashira flashes a knowing smile, recognizing that pure, unmistakable pride of a true cultivator. Their basket slowly overflows with vibrant crimson berries from their long day of labor. This bizarre trio works in perfect harmony, soaking in the pure satisfaction of a successful harvest. The chapter title flashes on screen, signaling that it's finally time for some sweet, well-earned rewards. After devouring a feast of savory smoked meat, the group kicks back to relax for the night. A tiny, adorable version of Carmilla looks up and asks Hishiro exactly what he's up to now. He flashes a confident grin, hoisting a skewer of fresh strawberries and declaring that dessert is on the way. Lydia and Carmilla gasp at the exact same time, their faces absolutely beaming with pure excitement. Seeing their faces light up with pure excitement, Hashir invites them to help whip up the delicious treat. They both shout a resounding yes, absolutely pumped to jump into the action. He breaks down the first step. Give those strawberries a good wash and slide them onto the skewers. The girls breeze through the task, prepping their fruit skewers in record time. Next up, he tells them to bring the honey to a boil, but they have to be careful not to let it burn. Lydia focuses hard as she stirs the pot, watching the honey transform into a thick golden syrup. Ashura gives the signal that it's perfect and tells her to pull the pot off the heat immediately. They plunge the skewers into the pot, coating every inch of the fruit in that shimmering golden glaze. Hashir holds up a finished skewer and reveals there's still one final magical step left. He calls on Lydia to use her magic to flash freeze the honey into a crunchy sweet shell. Lydia focuses her power, blasting the tray with a freezing wave of pure frost. "It's done!" Hashira shouts, showing off the masterpiece they just created. He reveals the perfect candied strawberries, and the girls erupt in pure joy. Everyone digs in, and a thunderous crunch echoes through the entire room. Carmilla shuts her eyes in pure bliss, obsessed with that incredible crispy texture. Hashira and Lydia are stunned by the legendary combo of sweet honey and tangy berries. They're already hyped to raid the farm and turn every fruit they have into these treats. As night falls, a heavy silence wraps around the house beneath a sea of stars. The glowing moon towers over the jagged, dark shadows of the forest. Suddenly, Kichon, the massive plant guardian, freezes as if he hears something lurking in the dark. Carmilla sprawls out on its head, gushing about the incredible strawberries she's finally harvested. She's certain the honey from the hive they're building together will be just as legendary. She looks up at the infinite sea of stars, completely lost in the beauty of the night. It's crazy to think that just a short while ago, she was a totally different person. Because of her new friends, she's finally found the true meaning of happiness in the smallest things. A thorny vine from her massive guardian reaches down, gently patting her head to comfort her. She beams with joy, knowing deep down that Kichon is the reason she's grown so much. Fire ignites in her soul as she raises her fists, vowing to never stop pushing forward. Suddenly, Lydia's voice rings out from the porch, telling the princess it's time to call it a night. "I'm coming!" Carmilla shouts back, her voice radiating with pure, unbridled cheer. Before heading out, she whispers a tender goodnight to her monstrous killer plant. Kichon lets out a soft shudder as the princess slides down from its massive head. The colossal plant guardian finally settles in, closing its eyes for a well-earned rest. A shooting star blazes across the midnight sky, marking the start of their brand new life. When the sun rises, Cray finally makes her grand return to her beloved princess. Hashira and Carmilla sprint outside, overjoyed to see her return in one piece. Cray reveals a massive cart overflowing with every seed and spice they asked for. She hauled in so many extra supplies that Shiro is completely buried under the mountain of loot. He pulls himself together, realizing they need to give these weary travelers a proper hero's welcome. A bizarre insect is perched right on Lent's shoulder, and Hashira demands to know what it is. Lydia instantly recognizes the beast. It's an Atoti Samudri, a deadly thread-spinning ant. She reveals these creatures craft massive nests by spewing thick silk right from their jaws. Hashira realizes Lent brought this gift just for them and showers his loyal companion with praise. He decides the perfect home for their new ant friend is the towering tree right behind the house. He tells Lent to lead the way, and the golem responds with a confident thumbs up. Cray bursts back onto the scene, desperate to know if Carmilla heard any news about her father. She delivers the shocking news. The Demon King gave them the green light to stay, and Hashira finally breathes a sigh of relief. Cray then turns to Hashira, begging for permission to stay and serve the princess. He gives the okay, and Cray lights up, vowing to take charge of every single supply run they need. Hashira is beyond thankful, knowing just how impossible it is to track down rare iron and spices. He can't wait a second longer and begs Cray to reveal the treasures she hauled back. Cray unveils the haul, showing off massive sacks of sweet sugar and spicy pepper. The moment she reveals a bag of pure white salt, Hashira breaks down in tears of absolute joy. He points points to another mysterious bag, and Cray reveals it's fiery chili powder made for seasoning meat. Hashira inhales the rich aroma of the spices, his mind racing with all the new flavors they can finally cook. Next, she cracks open crates packed with jars of exotic seeds straight from the Demon Kingdom. Carmilla is dying to start planting, but Hashira warns her to slow down and be patient. Bashira's eyes light up when he spots the piles of fresh vegetables and prime cuts of meat. Cray confirms that everything they need is packed into those boxes and ready for use. His jaw hits the floor when she drags out a massive shimmering iron plate. Cray reveals a shiny new pot and frying pan, leaving Hashira completely stunned and overflowing with thanks. Fired up, Hashira declares they're throwing a massive barbecue feast to celebrate their victory. The three girls just stare back with blank faces, totally baffled by this weird word, barbecue. Juicy meat and fresh veggies start screaming as they hit the scorching hot iron griddle. Lydia thinks she's figured it out. It's just grilled skewers, but Hashira quickly points out the subtle difference. A quick info box pops up to break down the real science between barbecuing and grilling. Carmilla is hyped and ready to blast the food with some spicy new chili powder. Hashira double checks for the salt and pepper, and she gives him the green light. He demonstrates the perfect skewer technique, and she's shocked at how simple it actually is. He tells her to rush those finished skewers straight over to the blazing grill. The food hits the heat with a satisfying sizzle, sending a mouth-watering aroma through the air. Hashira is stunned by how much faster this iron griddle sears compared to those clunky stone slabs. He calls for the plates, and Carmilla shouts back with pure, unbridled excitement. Lydia arrives carrying a massive platter of perfectly toasted, fluffy matcha mochi fruit. With the feast finally ready, Lydia announces the moment they've been waiting for. It's time to eat. The four of them gather around the table, offering a quick prayer of thanks before the feast begins. Hashira dives right in, taking a massive eager bite out of a piping hot skewer. He literally bursts into tears, completely overwhelmed by the glorious, magnificent taste of salt. Lydia sighs with pure joy, realizing that proper seasoning really is the secret to a perfect meal. Grace scolds Carmilla for her messy eating habits, but the princess is in food heaven and couldn't care less. Bashir reminds Cray that it's been an absolute eternity since they've tasted food with this much spice. Defeated, Cray finally gives up on trying to fix the princess's wild table manners. Hashira chimes in, declaring that eating straight off the skewer is the only way to enjoy a barbecue. He tells everyone to feast until they're full before the hard work of planting begins. The freshly tilled fields stretch out as far as the eye can see, ready for a massive harvest. A vast expanse of rich, dark soil waits patiently under the glow of a bright, cloudy sky. Hashira and Lydia jump into action, finally beginning the massive task of sowing the new seeds. Under Cray's watchful gaze, Carmilla carefully places each seedling into perfectly straight rows. The entire squad works in perfect harmony, prepping new planter boxes for their rapidly expanding farm. Lydia announces she's taking over the watering duties, and Hashira breathes a sigh of relief. She shuts her eyes tight, focusing every ounce of her will to swirl water mana between her palms. With a sudden burst, she hurls a massive sphere of water straight into the sky. A shimmering, mystical rain showers the fields while Carmilla watches with pure joy. Hashira flashes a confident grin, declaring that it's finally time for him to show off. He drops to his knees and slams his hands onto the earth, unleashing his insane growth acceleration. The seeds explode from the dirt, racing toward the sun in a blur of green. Hashira makes a mental note to crush those magic stones into superpowered fertilizer later. He catches Craig staring him down and asks what's got him so worked up. She warns him that if they want to keep growing, they're going to need a lot more help. Totally baffled, Hashira demands to know exactly what she's getting at. She makes it crystal clear. Betting everything on just him and Lent is a suicide mission. Hashira thanks her for the wake-up call and promises to take her warning to heart. Cry gives a formal bow before turning his attention back to Princess Carmilla. Now all alone, Hashira scratches his head as his mind starts to spiral. He realizes he's facing a massive new hurdle. They're going to need a lot more backup. Suddenly, the scene shifts to the Demon King's fortress, looming ominously under the full moon. The Demon King himself clutches a massive, glowing magic crystal in his gloved hand. From his dark throne, he marvels at the stone, calling it a truly magnificent prize. He can only imagine the sheer, raw power of the beast that once carried it. The fact that someone didn't just survive the Great Forest, but actually tamed it, has him completely hooked. A predatory, fanged smirk spreads across his face as he realizes this situation just got a whole lot more interesting. Back at the homestead, the midday sun blazes down on the roof of their quiet sanctuary. Hashira and Lydia stand frozen in shock, staring up at Chichon's massive, towering new form. Their simple plant guardian has evolved into a legendary mother plant that shadows everything in sight. Carmilla is buzzing with excitement over its raw power, but Kray's blood runs cold as he recognizes this beast from ancient legends. Kray warns that a monster this big will draw an entire army to their doorstep, but Hashira brushes it off like it's nothing. He declares Chichon a loyal comrade, while Kray can't stop picturing the tiny, harmless sprout it used to be. Hashira decides it's time to head out and check on the Edot Smudriats. He leaves the girls behind to finish the grueling work of preserving their massive harvest. He signals to his silent partner, beckoning Lin to follow him into the unknown. Hashira and his hulking golem march past the house, venturing deep into the shadowy woods. Suddenly, Hashira freezes as his eyes lock onto something strange lurking in the trees. He and Link stare up in awe at a massive, intricate nest woven entirely from shimmering silk. He calls out to the canopy, asking if a leader of the ants is there to talk. A lone ant crawls out from the silk, peering down at the intruders below. The ant representative zips down the trunk, rushing to meet them face to face. Hashira drops to one knee, greeting the tiny creature with total respect. He introduces himself as Lent's master and the true leader of their entire squad. He offers a massive deal: full support for the colony in exchange for their high-quality silk. Without a second thought, the ant gives a sharp nod, sealing the deal. To show off its incredible talent, the ant starts spinning a sample of fabric at lightning speed. Shimmering silk threads erupt from its mouth with the precision of a master craftsman. In a blinding blur of motion, the ant weaves those threads into a perfect piece of cloth. Hashira reaches out to touch it and is blown away by how insanely soft it feels. He immediately places a massive order for towels and huge sheets of this premium fabric. Then he drops the big question: can these ants actually craft full-blown clothing? The ants look totally baffled, circling him like he's some kind of strange puzzle. Suddenly, they swarm across the land, using their silk as a living measuring tape. Hashira glances at his silent friend, wondering if the ants are actually struggling with the task. Under the bright sun, Hashira teaches his golem, Lent, a hilarious victory pose. His training is cut short when a bizarre noise from the house suddenly grabs his attention. A massive crash echoes through the halls, startling Lydia, Carmilla, and Kray right in the middle of their work. Lydia screams in alarm while Carmilla instantly tracks down exactly where that sound came from. Fearing the absolute worst, Carmilla flies ahead, desperately calling out to see if Hashira is still alive. Lydia shrieks in total shock, her face turning bright red at the sight of Hashir's scandalous outfit. He stands there awkwardly in nothing but his underwear, frantically yelling that this is all a huge misunderstanding. He stammers that the tiny tailors were simply taking his measurements for some new clothes. Kray's eyes go wide as he realizes he was stripped for reference material, while Lydia just looks completely dazed. Blushing furiously, he begs them to stop staring at him with those judgmental looks. He drops to his knees, pleading with the tiny ant tailors to please just make him a shirt first. To reward their hard work, they're treated to a massive plate of mouth-watering mochi fruit. A few days pass and a calm, peaceful vibe finally settles over the entire homestead. Hashir, finally decked out in real clothes, declares that it's officially time to harvest their fresh crops. Carmilla dives right in, grabbing a basket while her loyal Kray follows close at her heels. Lydia is blown away by his power, but he stays humble, insisting their success belongs to everyone. She lets out a laugh, knowing full well these crops only grew this fast because of his insane abilities. Lydia suggests a hearty vegetable soup for dinner, and Hashir is already drooling at the thought. He suggests Link should snag some fish for the main course, and Lydia is totally on board. Suddenly, his face turns pale as a crushing, overwhelming pressure slams down on them. Both he and Lydia are completely paralyzed, terrified of the mysterious force pinning them down. Lydia's eyes snap wide in pure terror as she senses a crushing wave of magical energy. "Up there!" she screams, desperately pointing Hashira's gaze toward the heavens. A majestic demon drifts down from the clouds, stunned to find this settlement is far more advanced than the rumors suggested. He wears a look of twisted curiosity, clearly entertained by the scene unfolding before his eyes. His predatory gaze locks onto the two tiny figures standing defiantly in front of the house he's heard so much about. He touches down with feather-light grace, admitting he originally thought the reports were nothing but wild exaggerations. Flashing a wicked-fanged grin, he asks if this young man is truly the one they call Hashira. Hashira stares back in frozen silence as a wave of soul-crushing realization washes over his face. The Demon King throws his head back in a thunderous roar of laughter before starting his grand, terrifying introduction. But he cuts his own words short, lunging forward with speed so explosive it blurs the very air. His face warps into a terrifying mask of pure predatory hunger as he lunges for the kill. He stares in awe at Chichon, realizing this is the legendary monster capable of devouring entire nations. A blinding explosion of magical energy bursts forth, intercepting his strike in a flash of light. The king vanishes into thin air, and Lydia reveals she's used her teleportation magic to warp him away. Lydia's eyes burn with a cold, unwavering focus and grim determination. She spots the king instantly, pointing him out right at the edge of the dark forest. The king snarls in fury, cursing the Craze Report for failing to mention a beast this powerful. He can't believe his eyes, questioning how such an overwhelming level of power could even exist here. Ashira glares right back, his mind racing to uncover the demon's true, sinister goal.